Blood dripped from Ryan Blake's knuckles as he stared at the hidden camera footage exposing Judge Holloway's corruption. After 10 years of witness and 17-year-old Marcus Jenkins wrongfully imprisoned while the judge and DA pocketed millions from private prison kickbacks, so something in Ryan, he thought, long dead. Now, with damning evidence in hand and Marcus's mother's tears seared into his memory, the career conman faces his most dangerous deception yet, one that could finally bring justice or cost him everything. What price will Ryan pay to free an innocent boy when the entire system is rigged against them both? If this story moved you, please comment, like, and subscribe to our channel. Your support brings more stories of redemption and justice to light. 3 weeks earlier, Ryan Blake adjusted his Italian silk tie as he slipped into the back row of courtroom 7. The mahogany-paneled room smelled of lemon polish and desperation. He wasn't here for the trial, just researching Judge Lawrence Holloway, his next potential mark. Holloway had a reputation for harsh sentences and a lifestyle that exceeded his judicial salary. All rise for the Honorable Judge Lawrence Holloway. The judge entered, his black robe flowing behind him like a dark shadow. Ryan observed the calculating eyes, the practiced dignity. Perfect Conman material, he thought wryly. It took one to know one. In the case of State versus Marcus Jenkins, this court is ready to pass sentence. Ryan's attention shifted to the defendant, a black teenager, with broad shoulders and a defeated posture. According to the court docket, the kid was 17, charged with drug possession with intent to distribute. Ryan hadn't planned to stay for the sentencing, but something about the boy's expression made him pause. Marcus Jenkins, you have been found guilty of possessing narcotics with intent to distribute within 1,000 feet of a school zone. This court sentences you to 15 years in state prison. The courtroom gasped. Even Ryan, who prided himself on emotional detachment, felt his jaw tighten. 15 years for a first offense. The boy's shoulders slumped further as he turned to look at a woman in the front row, his mother, judging by her anguished expression. Your Honor, the public defender stammered. Given my client's age, clean prior record, and the circumstances, the sentence stands. Counsel. Next case. Judge Holloway's gavel came down with finality, but something else caught Ryan's attention. A slight smile, not the grim satisfaction of justice served, but something more. Proprietary. Ryan followed the bailiffs as they led Marcus away. The boy's mother rushed forward, reaching for her son's arm. Marcus, baby, we'll appeal. I promise, ma'am. Step back, ordered a bailiff, his hand moving to his taser. It's okay, Mama, Marcus said softly. Take care of Grandma. I'll be all right. Their fingers touched briefly before the bailiffs pulled Marcus through the side door. His mother stood frozen, then collapsed to her knees, clutching her son's basketball jersey to her chest. Ryan felt a strange tightness in his throat. He'd witnessed plenty of human suffering, had caused his share, but this hit differently. The woman's grief was raw, unfiltered, too genuine for this room of legal theater. As the courtroom emptied, Ryan noticed Judge Holloway engaged in quiet conversation with the prosecutor, both men smiling. Their satisfaction seemed disproportionate to the somber proceeding. Ryan stepped out into the hallway, intending to leave, when he overheard the prosecutor on his phone. Yeah, we got another one. Jenkins kid. 15 years. Right? That puts us over the quota for the quarter. Holloway came through again. Quota. Ryan paused, his conman's instincts flaring. Outside the courthouse, the Jenkins woman sat alone on a bench, staring at nothing. Ryan hesitated, then sat beside her. Ms. Jenkins. I couldn't help noticing what happened in there. That sentence seemed excessive. She looked up, her eyes red but dry. Excessive. It's a death sentence. My boy was going to college. Basketball scholarship. She clutched the jersey tighter. They found a bag in his locker. Not his. He doesn't do drugs. Never has. The evidence wasn't any evidence, except that bag and one statement from a boy who disappeared right after. Marcus was just in the wrong place. Her voice hardened. Or the right place. For them? What do you mean? Third black boy from our neighborhood this month? Same judge. Same sentence? Same private prison waiting for young bodies. She looked Ryan in the eye. You work for the court? No, Ryan said, his mind racing. I'm just ... concerned. She gave a bitter laugh. Unless you can get my boy a real lawyer, or prove he was framed, your concern doesn't help much. Ryan watched her walk away, the jersey clutched to her chest like a talisman. He pulled out his phone and began searching for information on Judge Holloway, the recent cases, and Blackwater Private Correctional Facilities, the company that ran the state prison. An hour later, in his hotel suite, Ryan stared at his research notes. Judge Holloway had sentenced an unusually high number of first-time offenders to maximum terms, all to Blackwater facilities. Meanwhile, the judge had purchased a vacation home and a boat in the past year. Ryan thought of the broken mother, of the teenager's defeated eyes, of the word quota. His phone rang, his business partner calling about their next con. Ryan let it go to voicemail as he continued reading about Marcus Jenkins, the basketball star with a full scholarship offer who now faced 15 years in prison. For the first time in years, Ryan felt something crack in his carefully constructed, emotional armor. This wasn't just injustice, it was a con game. One even bigger and more vicious than anything he'd ever pulled, and it offended his professional sensibilities. The next morning, Ryan parked his rented Mercedes across from a modest duplex in East Side. He'd spent half the night researching the Jenkins case, finding threads that didn't add up. Now he watched as Denise Jenkins emerged, dressed in hospital scrubs. 3 night shifts a week as an ER nurse, plus weekend work at a clinic hall and the court records. Ryan straightened his tie and grabbed his leather portfolio. The familiar rush of stepping into a new identity tingled through him. Today he wasn't Ryan Blake, con artist. He was James Ward, legal consultant specializing in wrongful convictions. He approached as she locked her door. Ms. Jenkins. I'm James Ward. I was in court yesterday during your son's sentencing. Her exhausted eyes narrowed with suspicion. What do you want? I work with the Justice Review Project. We investigate potential miscarriages of justice. He offered a business card, one of dozens of fake identities he maintained. Your son's case? Something doesn't feel right. Nothing's right about it, she said, but took the card. Marcus, never dealt drugs, never even smoked. Could we talk for a few minutes? I'd like to hear your perspective. She checked her watch. I have 20 minutes before my bus. Inside the small living room, basketball trophies lined a shelf alongside honor roll certificates. A worn couch faced a TV stand covered with family photos. Marcus is a good boy, Denise said, gesturing toward the evidence of her son's achievements. Top of his class, going to state on scholarship. Her voice caught, was going. Ryan examined a team photo. Basketball scholarship, full ride, first in our family to go to college. She pulled a folder from a drawer and handed him a letter. They're holding his spot for a year, hoping the appeal works, but ... The acceptance letter confirmed a full athletic scholarship. Ryan felt that unfamiliar twinge again, the one he'd spent years suppressing. Tell me about the arrest. They pulled him from class. Said they found a bag of pills in his locker. Oxy, and some other things I can't pronounce. But Marcus doesn't do drugs. His coach tests them every week. Who had access to his locker? The whole basketball team. They share sometimes. She sank onto the couch. The only witness was a boy named Trent who said he saw Marcus with the bag. Then Trent disappeared, transferred schools the next day. Ryan made notes. Your public defender didn't find this suspicious? Mr. Grimes had 20 minutes with Marcus before trial. 20 minutes for my son's life. Bitterness edged her voice. Told us to take a plea. 8 years, instead of 15. Marcus wouldn't do it, said. He wasn't pleading guilty to something he didn't do. Pride flickered across her exhausted features. Ryan recognized stubborn integrity when he saw it. Not a trait that served one well in a rigged system. The arresting officer? He asked. Officer Reynolds. DA's brother. She gave a humorless laugh. This town? Mr. Ward. Ryan's instincts sharpened. Family connections, vanishing witnesses, convenient evidence. Classic con setup. What about Judge Holloway? Any history there? Never met him. But he sent 5 kids from our neighborhood away this year, all to that same private prison. She pulled a newspaper clipping from the folder. They keep building more of them around here. The article detailed Blackwater's expansion, 3 new facilities in the state in 2 years. May 1. Ryan took the folder, flipping through court transcripts, police reports, and character references never entered into evidence. You've done thorough research. I'm fighting for my son's life, she said simply. Ryan paused at a photo of a younger Marcus, maybe 10, holding a basketball and beaming. Something about the boy's determined smile triggered a memory. A battered basketball court. Summer heat. Another boy with dreams. ... He pushed the memory away. The prosecution's case seems built entirely on the drugs and this missing witness. They claimed the amount meant he was dealing, but the search was illegal, no warrant. Judge didn't care. Ryan closed the folder. Ms. Jenkins, I'd like to look deeper into your son's case. Hope and suspicion warred in her eyes. Why? What's your angle? It was a fair question. Ryan always had an angle. Let's just say I have a problem with rigged games, he said, surprising himself with his honesty. And your son's case looks rigged from start to finish. She studied him with the penetrating gaze of a mother who couldn't afford more disappointment. You're not really with any justice project, are you? Ryan held her gaze, momentarily discarding his practiced lies. No, but I have skills that might help your son. Resources. You're not a lawyer. I'm someone who knows how systems get corrupted. Miss Jenkins, sometimes it takes a thief to catch a thief. She absorbed this, then stood and retrieved a worn shoebox from a closet. Inside were letters, dozens of them. These are from colleges that scouted him. 23 schools wanted my boy. She pulled out Marcus's dream journal, filled with goals and workout plans. He wakes up at 5 a.m. every day to practice before school, never missed a day in 4 years. Ryan saw the calloused hands of a woman who had worked night shifts for years to support her son's dreams. He thought of his own mother, who had abandoned him to the system when he was 12. Different choices, different outcomes. I can't promise anything, he said carefully, but I'll see what I can find. I don't have money to pay you. I'm not asking for payment. She walked him to the door. Why are you really doing this? Mr. Whatever your name is Ryan. Paused, he could manufacture a convincing lie, he always did. Instead, he found himself saying, because your son reminds me of someone I used to know. Someone who didn't get a second chance. It wasn't entirely a lie. The boy from his memories hadn't gotten a second chance. That boy had become Ryan Blake, instead master of deception. Emotional vagrant, taker of what wasn't his. As he walked to his car, Ryan's phone buzzed with a text from his partner. The Porter Con is ready. Target primed. Where are you? Ryan stared at it, then typed, delay 2 weeks. Something came up. For the first time in years, Ryan Blake was going to run a con without a payday. The county courthouse records room smelled of dust and forgotten promises. Ryan, now dressed down in khakis and a button-up shirt, flashed a counterfeit press badge at the receptionist. Mark Peterson, Midwest Justice Review, he said with a practiced smile, researching sentencing patterns for juvenile offenders. The middle-aged woman barely glanced at his credentials. Sign here. Public records are in those filing cabinets. Anything from the last 5 years is in the computer system. She pointed to an ancient desktop. Password is on the sticky note. Under the keyboard, government security at its finest, Ryan thought. For 3 hours, he meticulously tracked Judge Holloway's sentencing history. The pattern was unmistakable. Since Blackwater Correctional had opened its facilities 2 years ago, Holloway's sentencing severity had increased dramatically, particularly for young, first-time offenders from poorer neighborhoods. Finding what you need. A voice startled him. A young woman with copper hair tied in a practical bun stood beside his table. Her ID badge read Lisa Conroy, records clerk. Just research, Ryan said, casually covering his notes. Interesting sentencing patterns in this. County. Lisa glanced toward the receptionist, who was now on a personal call, then lowered her voice. You looking at Holloway's cases? Ryan assessed her quickly. Early 30s, intelligent eyes, a slight furrow between her brows suggesting concern rather than suspicion. Yes. Noticed anything unusual about them, besides how he sends every young kid to Blackwater with maximum sentences? She raised an eyebrow. Or how he started buying property in the Caymans last year. Ryan's conman instincts detected a potential ally. You keep track of Judge's property purchases? My brother got 10 years from Holloway for a first-time possession charge. I pay attention. She slid a file folder toward him. These just came in for filing. Thought you might find them. Educational. Inside were financial disclosure forms for the county judiciary. Judge Holloway's listed modest investments and his judicial salary. Nothing suspicious. Page 4, Lisa whispered before walking away. Ryan flipped pages. There it was, an amendment listing Holloway as a non-compensated advisor to Camden Holdings, LLC. A quick search on his phone revealed Camden Holdings as a shell company that owns significant shares in Blackwater Correctional's parent company. He photographed the documents with his phone, then moved to the computer. Court records showed District Attorney Thomas Reynolds had prosecuted 94% of the cases Holloway sent to Blackwater. The DA's conviction rate had earned him political attention, with rumors of a run for state attorney general. Ryan searched for connections between Reynolds and Blackwater. Nothing obvious appeared, but the DA's brother, Officer James Reynolds, who had arrested Marcus, had received 3 departmental commendations in the past year, all 4 drug arrests that led to Blackwater sentences. His phone vibrated. His partner again, Porter, asking questions. Need you back. What's the holdup? Ryan silenced it. The Porter Con would net them 7 figures, but something bigger was unfolding here. He wasn't just following a hunch anymore, was excavating a conspiracy. He copied more files, then approached Lisa's desk. Thank you for your help. I'd like to look at Marcus Jenkins' case specifically. Her expression softened. The basketball player. That one felt wrong even by Holloway standards. His file is being digitized, but... double quotes. She checked her computer. It should be in the basement archives. The basement was a labyrinth of metal shelving. Ryan found Marcus's file tucked between hundreds of others. The evidence was sparse. Photos of pills found in his locker, a single witness statement from the now-vanished Trent Williams, an Officer Reynolds arrest report. Ryan photographed everything, particularly the evidence log. The pills had been sent to the state lab, but the results weren't in the file. Convenient. As he replaced the file, he noticed a security camera blinking in the corner. He'd been careful to keep his face angled, old habits, but still, he'd been in the building for hours. Time to leave upstairs. He thanked Lisa for her help. One last question. Does Judge Holloway have a regular schedule? For my article about his innovative approach to juvenile justice. Golf every Wednesday afternoon at Ridgemont Country Club. Dinner at Salvatore's most Fridays. Her eyes narrowed slightly. You're not really writing an article, are you? Ryan maintained his friendly journalist smile. What makes you say that? You take too many pictures of financial forms for a sentencing patterns story, and you've got good shoes. Ryan glanced down at his deliberately average outfit, but his shoes were indeed Italian leather, a personal weakness. Outlet sale, he lied smoothly. Sure, she handed him her card. If you find anything interesting in those Blackwater connections, I'd love to hear about it. Off the record. As Ryan walked to his car, he spotted a black SUV with tinted windows. In the parking lot, a man in a suit watched him from beside it, speaking into a phone. Ryan diverted to a side exit, taking a circuitous route back to his hotel. In his room, he spread out his findings across the bed. The pieces were forming a picture: a judge with hidden financial interests, a district attorney with political ambitions, a private prison company with profit motives, and a teenager whose basketball scholarship had somehow threatened it all. Ryan poured himself a scotch and stared at the evidence. He'd conned dozens of wealthy marks over the years, but this was different. This was systemic. Professional. And if his suspicions were correct, much more dangerous to challenge. His phone buzzed again, but it wasn't his partner this time. An unknown number with a text, asking questions about Holloway is unhealthy. Walk away. Ryan took a long sip of scotch. Whoever had sent the message didn't know who they were dealing with. Ryan Blake never walked away from a con once. He'd started, especially when he wasn't the biggest con man in the room, the abandoned warehouse on the riverfront had once manufactured boat parts. Now it housed Solomon Beck's eclectic collection of antique electronics and surveillance equipment. Ryan parked 2 blocks away and approached on foot, checking twice for tails. He knocked, 3 quick, 2 slow. The pattern hadn't changed in 15 years. The door opened a crack, revealing a weathered face framed by silver dreadlocks. Ryan Blake. Benoit. Hello, Solomon. The old man stepped back, allowing Ryan to enter the cavernous space. Workbenches lined the walls, covered with dismantled electronics and half-finished projects. A tabby cat watched from atop a vintage radio still collecting junk. I see, Ryan said. One man's junk is another man's. Solomon gestured expansively. Retirement plan? He studied Ryan with shrewd eyes. You're not here about the porter job. Your partner's been calling me, wondering where you disappeared to. Ryan wasn't surprised. Solomon Beck knew everything about everyone in their world. The old con artist had been a legend before retiring to this warehouse sanctuary, where he now specialized in equipment for discerning professionals. I need surveillance gear, high quality, undetectable. Solomon raised an eyebrow. Last time I fronted you equipment, you were working that tech billionaire. Split the take fair. If I recall. He settled into a worn leather chair. Who's the mark this time? A judge. Ryan hesitated. But it's not exactly a con. Solomon's expression shifted from curiosity to concern. You targeting law enforcement now? That's not your style. It's complicated, uncomplicated. Ryan outlined the Marcus Jenkins case, the pattern of sentencing, and his suspicions about Blackwater. Solomon listened silently, his fingers steepled. You're risking your neck for some kid you don't know, he finally said. Why? Ryan paced the concrete floor. The whole system's a con. Solomon, a dirty judge, a corrupt DA, all of them getting rich sending kids to private prisons. Since when does Ryan Blake care about social justice? I don't, Ryan snapped. But this offends me professionally. Solomon chuckled, but his eyes remained serious. You're a damn good liar, boy. Too bad you can't lie to me. He stood, moving to a workbench. I knew you when you were sleeping under that basketball court, remember? Before you learned to talk your way into penthouses. Ryan's jaw tightened. He hated being reminded of that time the hungry teenager with nowhere to go after his last foster home had thrown him out. What's this really about? Solomon pressed. Ryan stared at a spot on the wall. The kid had a basketball scholarship. Full ride. Understanding dawned in Solomon's eyes. Ah, so that's it? A heavy silence filled the warehouse. Ryan's own basketball scholarship, his ticket out of poverty, had evaporated when his juvenile record was mysteriously unsealed. He'd never discovered who had arranged that particular sabotage, but the result had been clear. No college, no future, no options beyond the streets, until Solomon had found him. I just need equipment, Ryan said finally, not a therapy session. Solomon nodded slowly. Targeting a judge is different from conning rich assholes. Ryan, these people have real power, the kind that can make you disappear. I know the risks. Do you? Solomon moved to a locked cabinet. Because once you start this, there's no walking away. These aren't your usual marks who are too embarrassed to admit they got conned. These are people who solve problems permanently. He unlocked the cabinet, revealing rows of specialized equipment. What exactly do you need? Hidden cameras? Audio recording? Something that can get past courthouse security. Solomon selected several devices. This camera looks like a tie pin. Records to this? He held up what appeared to be an ordinary power bank. Audio recorder disguised as a Mont Blanc pen. Range of 30 feet. Voice activated. Ryan examined them. Quality. Used them to get evidence on that child trafficking ring in Miami 3 years ago. Ryan looked up sharply. That was you. I thought the FBI broke that. A ghost of a smile crossed Solomon's face. Where do you think they got their evidence? He assembled the equipment with practiced hands. Some cons are about money, others are about balance. Ryan had always suspected Solomon's retirement wasn't entirely idle, but this confirmation surprised him. You're telling me you're some kind of vigilante now? I'm telling you there are worse things to be. Solomon handed him the assembled kit. These will get you what you need, assuming you know what you're doing. Ryan reached for his wallet, but Solomon waved him off. Consider it an investment in your moral development. I don't need. Save it. Solomon's expression turned serious. Judge Holloway isn't just any corrupt official, Ryan. He's connected. Blackwater Correctional is owned by Princeton Strategic Partners. Big political donors, former intelligence officers on the board. They don't play games. Ryan absorbed this. How do you know so much about them? Because I've been watching them for years. Solomon moved to a corkboard covered with news clippings. Private prisons, immigrant detention centers, behavioral modification camps for troubled teens. PSP has their fingers in all of it. The board documented a sprawling network of businesses, politicians, and legal figures. Judge Holloway's photo appeared multiple times. You've been investigating them, Ryan realized. Among other things. Solomon tapped Holloway's picture. This man has friends in federal agencies. The kind who don't need warrants to make problems. Go away. Are you trying to scare me off? I'm trying to make sure you understand what you're walking into. Solomon's voice softened. You were always my best student, Ryan. Smartest con man I ever trained. But this isn't about talking your way into some rich fool's bank account. Ryan pocketed the surveillance equipment. I can handle it. The boy must remind you of yourself. Ryan didn't answer. Solomon sighed. At least tell me you have a plan. I'm going to become exactly the kind of person Judge Holloway would want to do business with. And then I'm going to destroy him, Ryan said simply. Solomon studied him for a long moment, then nodded. There's something else you should know. The key to bringing down operations like this isn't just exposing the corruption, it's following the money. He pulled an external hard drive from a drawer. Financial records for Princeton Strategic Partners, including their shell companies, took me months to compile. Ryan took it. Why are you giving me this? Because maybe it's time you used your talents for something besides your bank account. Solomon placed a hand on Ryan's shoulder. Be careful. These people won't just try to kill you, they'll try to make you disappear completely. As Ryan turned to leave, Solomon called after him. One more thing. If you get in trouble, real trouble, there's a panic button app on that phone I gave you last year. Use it, and I'll find you. Walking back to his car, Ryan felt an unfamiliar weight of responsibility. He was accustomed to working alone, to being accountable only to himself. Now he carried Solomon's trust, Denise Jenkins' hope, and something else, something that felt dangerously like purpose. His phone buzzed with another message from his partner. Porter deal falling apart? Where the hell are you? Ryan texted back. Handle it yourself. I'm out. Then he turned the phone off and drove away, already planning his approach to Judge Lawrence Holloway. Richard Hammond was born in a luxury suite at the Grand Meridian Hotel. Ryan meticulously constructed the identity over 2 days of venture. Capitalist specializing in real estate development with a particular interest in public-private partnerships. Hammond had the right credentials. Harvard Business School, former positions at prestigious firms, and most importantly, a liquid investment portfolio of $50 million. None of it was real, of course, but Ryan's forgeries were flawless. He'd spent years perfecting the art of digital identity creation, and Richard Hammond was his masterpiece, complete with LinkedIn profile, press mentions in business publications, and a carefully curated online presence dating back 5 years. Ryan studied himself in the mirror as he adjusted his custom suit. The transformation went beyond clothes and credentials. He changed his posture, lowered his voice half an octave, and adopted the subtle mannerisms of old money, the kind of confidence that never needed to announce itself. Richard Hammond was the sort of man who would attract Judge Holloway's attention, a potential investor in precisely the ventures that interested a corrupt judiciary official with connections to private prisons. Ryan's research had revealed Holloway's weakness for social climbing. The judge coveted acceptance among the city's elite, hosting charity events and sitting on non-profit boards despite his relatively modest judicial salary, which is how Richard Hammond found himself at the Opera House Gala, an annual fundraiser for the city's arts programs. A $10,000 donation courtesy of one of Ryan's offshore accounts had secured an invitation. The limestone opera house glittered with chandeliers and the jewelry of the city's wealthiest residents. Ryan navigated the crowd with practiced ease, making strategic small talk while scanning for his target. Mr. Hammond, a woman in a midnight blue gown approached. I'm Catherine Barnes, event coordinator. We're so pleased you could join us tonight. The pleasure is mine, Ryan replied in Hammond's refined Boston accent. I've always believed in supporting the arts and communities where I invest, and we understand you're considering some significant investments in our city. Her eyes sparkled with interest. Exploring opportunities, he said with a modest smile. I find smaller cities often offer returns that Manhattan overlooks. Well, there are several board members who would love to meet you, including Judge Holloway. He chairs our development committee. Perfect. Ryan sipped his champagne. I'd be delighted. She led him through the crowd to a small circle of people surrounding a distinguished-looking man with silver hair and an air of authority. Judge Lawrence Holloway in his natural habitat holding court even outside his chambers. Judge Holloway, Catherine interrupted smoothly. May I introduce Richard Hammond? He's new to the city and has been quite generous to our foundation. Holloway turned, his practiced smile revealing perfect teeth. Mr. Hammond, welcome. His handshake was firm, calculated. What brings you to our humble corner of the Midwest? Investment opportunities, Ryan replied, particularly in development and infrastructure. I believe in finding mutual benefit between private enterprise and public institutions. Holloway's interest visibly sharpened. An admirable philosophy, one I share. He gestured to the circle. Let me introduce you to some people you should know. For the next hour, Ryan was subtly vetted by Holloway's associates, a bank president, 2 real estate developers, and the publisher of the local newspaper. He passed their inspection with flying colors, dropping the right references, mentioning the right clubs, and expressing appropriately conservative views on taxation and regulation. Richard is looking at several development opportunities. Holloway explained to a real estate developer, including some innovative approaches to municipal facilities. The careful phrasing wasn't lost on Ryan. Holloway was testing the waters. I've had some success with public-private partnerships, Ryan offered, particularly in areas where governments face budget constraints but still need to provide essential services. Like corrections, Holloway suggested, an unfortunate growth industry in today's climate. Ryan nodded. The private sector can often build and manage such facilities more efficiently than government. A calculating look crossed Holloway's face. We should continue this conversation sometime. My wife and I are hosting a small dinner party next weekend. Nothing formal. Would you be available? I'd be honored, Ryan said, accepting a business card with the judge's private number. Mission accomplished. The hook was set. As the evening wound down, Ryan made his way toward the exit, pleased with his progress. He'd established contact, aroused interest, and secured a follow-up call without appearing too eager. Mr. Hammond, Ryan turned to find Lisa, the courthouse clerk, staring at him with narrowed eyes. She wore a simple black dress and held a tray of empty glasses, clearly working the event, not attending it. His mind raced. She'd seen him as Mark Peterson at the courthouse, and now as Richard Hammond at the gala. A potential catastrophe. Yes, he replied calmly, neither confirming nor denying recognition. She studied him. You look familiar. I have one of those faces, he said with a practiced chuckle. Just arrived in town last week. First time at this event. My mistake, she said, but her expression remained suspicious. Enjoy your evening, Ryan maintained, his composure as he left the opera house, but internally, he was recalculating. Lisa was a complication. She'd noticed him at the courthouse, had even helped him. Now she'd spotted him in a different identity. In his hotel room. He shed Richard Hammond's persona like a snake shedding skin. He loosened his tie, slumped his shoulders, and let his natural voice return as he poured a scotch. His real phone had 7 missed calls from his former partner. Ryan ignored them and opened his laptop to review what he'd learned. Judge Holloway had practically invited him to discuss investing in private prisons. The judge's casual mention of corrections as a growth industry confirmed Ryan's suspicions about his financial interests, and the careful way Holloway had introduced him around the room suggested he was vetting potential business associates. Ryan opened a secure messaging app and sent an update to Solomon. Contact made. Dinner invitation next weekend. Solomon's reply came minutes later. Be careful. Holloway's security team ran background checks on everyone at the gala. Ryan smiled. His false identity would hold up to scrutiny. Richard Hammond's digital footprint was immaculate: tax returns, credit history, even divorce records from a marriage that never existed. He was preparing for bed when a text arrived from an unknown number. Mark Peterson or Richard Hammond? Which is it? Lisa. She'd connected the dots faster than he'd anticipated. Ryan stared at the message, weighing his options. She could expose him to Holloway, or she could become an ally. The courthouse clerk with a brother in prison, and access to records he needed. Neither. He texted back. But I think we're on the same side. The reply came quickly. Prove it. Your brother 10 years from Holloway 4. First offense. Same pattern as Marcus Jenkins. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, then reappeared. Finally, coffee. Tomorrow, 10 a.m. Riverside Cafe. Ryan put down the phone and stared out at the city lights. The con was growing more complex by the hour. New variables, new risks, but also new possibilities. If Lisa truly wanted to expose Holloway's corruption, she could be invaluable, or she could be the trap that brought everything crashing down. Blackwater Correctional Facility loomed against the gray sky, a sprawling complex of concrete and razor wire 30 miles outside the city. Ryan joined the line of visitors, clutching the legal consultant credentials he'd forged the night before. The guard at processing barely glanced at his ID. Name of inmate: Marcus Jenkins. Relation: legal consultant. Post-conviction review. The guard checked his computer. Jenkins ... He's not expecting legal counsel. Ryan produced a letter with the Justice Review Project letterhead. His mother arranged it. We're examining his case for potential appeal. After a cursory inspection of his briefcase and a pat-down, Ryan was led through a series of security doors to the visitation room, a cheerless space with bolted-down tables and plastic chairs. Cameras monitored every corner. Marcus entered in a beige jumpsuit, taller than Ryan had expected, with broad shoulders and the lean build of an athlete. 2 months in prison had already begun to harden his expression, but his eyes still held intelligence and something Ryan recognized all too well: carefully controlled fear. Marcus Jenkins. I'm James Ward, from the Justice Review Project. Ryan extended his hand across the table. Your mother asked me to look into your case. Marcus's handshake was tentative. My mom hired you. Not exactly. We're a nonprofit that investigates potential wrongful convictions. No cost to your family. Marcus studied him suspiciously. Why my case? The evidence seemed thin, and the sentencing was unusual for a first-time offender. Marcus glanced toward the guard by the door, then leaned forward. You talking to all the guys Judge Holloway sent here? Should I be? A bitter smile crossed Marcus's face. There's 5 of us just from my neighborhood, all here on drug charges. None of us ever dealt. Ryan opened his notebook. Tell me about the day you were arrested. Marcus's story matched what his mother had told Ryan, pulled from class. Drugs found in his locker, the vanished witness. But Marcus added details his mother hadn't known. Trent Williams, the guy who saw me with the drugs, coach cut him from the team the day before. I was starting point guard instead of him. You think he planted the drugs? Marcus shrugged. Maybe. Or maybe someone paid him to say he saw me with them. His family moved away right after. Nice new car, too. Nobody's heard from him since. Ryan made notes. Any problems with Officer Reynolds before the arrest? Never met him before that day? Marcus hesitated. But his brother the Dahi came to our championship game last season. Talked to me after, asked about my scholarship, seemed real interested. Ryan's instincts sharpened. Did he mention anything about his brother working narcotics? Nah, just basketball. Told me his son played for Central High. Marcus's eyes darkened. The school we beat for the state championship. Another connection? Ryan mentally added it to his growing map of the conspiracy. What about prison conditions here? How are they treating you? Marcus's expression closed off. It's prison. What do you expect? I've heard Blackwater has ... issues. Marcus glanced again at the guard, then lifted his sleeve slightly, revealing a mottled bruise. Got this for being disrespectful to a CO. They're always looking for reasons. Have you told your mother? Hell no. Marcus's voice cracked slightly. She's worried enough. And they monitor our calls, our mail, everything. Ryan felt an unexpected surge of protectiveness. This kid was barely surviving, trying to shield his mother while navigating a system designed to break him. Marcus, I believe you were set up. I'm gathering evidence that might help overturn your conviction. Hope flickered in Marcus's eyes, quickly suppressed. People been promising my mom things since this started. Nothing changes. I'm not most people. Ryan leaned closer. The judge who sentenced you has connections to this prison. Financial connections? I think that's why you're here. You saying I'm worth money to them? Every inmate represents about $50,000 per year to Blackwater. Young, healthy inmates who can work in their manufacturing program. Even more. Understanding dawned in Marcus's expression. So it's not even about drugs. It's about bodies, filling beds. Exactly. Marcus absorbed this, his hands curling into fists on the table. My whole life, everything I worked for, gone because some judge wants to make money. Ryan recognized the dangerous edge of despair in his voice. Not gone, delayed. I'm going to fix this, Marcus. Why? Why do you care? Ryan hesitated. In his career as a con artist, he'd perfected the art of calculated revelation sharing, just enough truth to build trust while concealing his true motives. But something about Marcus's direct gaze demanded honesty. I had a scholarship once. Basketball, like you? Full ride to Michigan State? What happened? Someone made sure I lost it. Juvenile record that was supposed to be sealed suddenly wasn't. Scholarship disappeared overnight. Marcus studied him. So this is, what's revenge? Living through me. Call it recognizing a rigged game. Ryan met his gaze. The system is designed to fail people like us. Marcus, I found different ways to beat it, but you deserve to beat it straight. A faint smile touched Marcus's lips. You talk like you ain't exactly a lawyer. I'm exactly what you need right now. Ryan glanced at his watch. Our time's almost up. Is there anything else I should know? Marcus leaned forward, his voice barely above a whisper. There's a guard Miller who sometimes lets inmates use his phone for cash. If I find out anything, I could call you. Ryan wrote a number on a slip of paper. Memorize this, then destroy it. You really think you can help me? I know I can. Ryan gathered his notes. But I need you to do something too. What's that? Survive. Keep your head down. Don't give them excuses. Ryan held his gaze. I promise you'll play college ball. Marcus, just not this season. For the first time, genuine hope flickered in Marcus's eyes. My mom, okay, she's strong, working a lot. Misses you. Tell her, ... Marcus swallowed hard. Tell her, I'm doing fine, and I'm still practicing. Got a rim in the yard with no net, but I still put up shots every day. The guard approached. Time's up. As Marcus stood to leave, Ryan saw what he'd missed before: the slight limp when he put weight on his left leg. Your knee? Ryan asked quietly. Marcus nodded slightly, fell in the shower twice. Ryan felt cold anger settle in his chest. They were systematically destroying what made this kid special, his athletic ability, his future, his hope. "I'll be back," he promised. Walking out of Blackwater, Ryan felt something he hadn't experienced in years, the weight of a promise he intended to keep at any cost. Not for money, not for the thrill of the con, but because a system that would sacrifice Marcus Jenkins for profit deserved to be burned to the ground. His phone vibrated with a text from Lisa. "Dinner at Judge's house tomorrow night. Guest list includes DA Reynolds and Blackwater CEO Harris. You're officially interesting to them." Ryan smiled grimly. The game was accelerating, and he was exactly where he needed to be. Lisa sipped her coffee, her copper hair pulled back in a severe ponytail. "You're either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. Why not both?" Ryan replied, settling into the booth at the back of Riverside Caf. After their tense text exchange, he'd agreed to meet her at calculated risk, but Ryan's instincts told him she was genuinely opposed to Holloway's corruption. The clerk had become his unexpected ally, providing insights into the courthouse operations and keeping him informed about the judge's activities. "Holloway's having his security team run a deep background check on Richard Hammond," she said. "They're intrigued by your interest in municipal facilities." "Good, my background will hold up." She studied him over the rim of her mug. "Who are you, really? Someone with resources and motivation to expose what's happening? FBI? Journalist?" Ryan smiled. "Would either of those be conducting a covert operation without backup? Then what's your angle?" Her eyes narrowed. "Nobody risks their neck without a reason. Let's just say I have a professional objection to their particular con game." Understanding dawned in her expression. "You're some kind of what, confidence man?" Ryan didn't confirm or deny. "What matters is we both want the same thing too. Bring down Holloway and his prison scheme." She considered this, then nodded. Reynolds will be at Holloway's dinner tomorrow. He's the weak link." "How so?" "Gambling debts. Big ones. He keeps it quiet, but I've seen the collection notices in his courthouse mail." Ryan leaned forward. "That's why he needs the kickbacks." "Exactly, and now he's planning to run for state attorney general. Needs clean money for his campaign." This was valuable intelligence. Ryan had been focusing on Holloway, but perhaps the district attorney offered a more vulnerable target. "What else can you tell me about Reynolds?" "Divorced twice, lives beyond his means, drinks too much at fundraisers." She pulled a slip of paper from her pocket, "and he'll be at the Capitol Club tonight. Poker game in the back room." Ryan smiled. "A gambling prosecutor with money problems? Almost too perfect. You're quite the resource." "Lisa, my brother's serving 10 years for something he didn't do," she said flatly. "I want them all to pay." That evening Ryan walked into the Capitol Club dressed in Richard Hammond's bespoke suit. The private establishment catered to the city's political and business elite. Its dark wood and leather interior, designed to evoke old money privilege. He spotted Thomas Reynolds at the bar mid-40s, aggressively fit, with the practiced smile of a career politician. 3 empty tumblers sat before him. Ryan approached casually. "Scotch, neat," he told the bartender, then glanced at Reynolds. "Make it to McAllen 25, if you have it." Reynolds looked up with interest. "Generous of you, Richard Hammond." Ryan extended his hand. "I believe we have a mutual acquaintance in Judge Holloway, Tom Reynolds." The DA's handshake was politician perfect. "Lawrence mentioned you. You're the developer, among other things." Ryan nodded as the bartender placed 2 amber-filled glasses before them. "I understand you might be running for higher office soon." Reynolds' smile tightened slightly. "News travels fast. I make it my business to know who's moving up in places, where I invest." Ryan raised his glass. To ambition. They drank, Reynolds with the practiced ease of a man accustomed to expensive liquor. "What brings you to our humble jurisdiction, Mr. Hammond?" "Opportunity? Small cities often offer returns that bigger markets miss." Ryan lowered his voice. "Particularly in specialized infrastructure." Reynolds' interest visibly sharpened. "Such as facilities, management, housing, security." Ryan let the implications hang in the air. "The private sector solving public problems? You sound like Lawrence." "We share a certain pragmatic approach." Ryan gestured to the back room. "I hear there's a game tonight." Reynolds glanced at his watch. "There is. High stakes you play. When the company's interesting." Ryan signaled for another round. "Though I find business discussions at the poker table can be ... productive." 2 hours and several $1,000s. Later, Ryan had positioned himself exactly where he wanted to be as the affable winner keeping Reynolds in a game. The prosecutor couldn't afford. The DA was 6 drinks in, down 15,000, and growing increasingly desperate. "Perhaps we should call it a night," suggested an older banker, as Reynolds pushed the last of his chips into the pot. "One more hand," Reynolds insisted, his words slightly slurred. Ryan had been carefully losing small pots while winning large ones, a technique he'd perfected years ago. Now he held a mediocre hand, but read the desperation in Reynolds' flushed face. "I'll cover Mr. Reynolds if necessary," Ryan offered smoothly. "I'm enjoying the company." Relief flashed across the DA's features. "Appreciate it, Hammond." When Reynolds predictably lost again, the other players tactfully departed, leaving Ryan alone with the intoxicated prosecutor. "I seem to be in your debt," Reynolds said, attempting dignity despite his obvious inebriation. "Consider it an investment in our future relationship." Ryan poured him another drink. "I understand the financial demands of a campaign can be challenging." Reynolds laughed bitterly. "You have no idea." "Actually, I do." Ryan leaned forward. "That's why I'm interested in speaking with you and Judge Holloway about certain mutual opportunities, the prison contracts." Reynolds wasn't asking. "Among other things, I represent investors who appreciate the efficiency of the private corrections model." Reynolds swirled his drink, his inhibitions lowered by alcohol and desperation. "Lawrence has been looking for new capital partners. The current arrangement has limitations." Ryan activated the recording device disguised as a fountain pen in his pocket. "Blackwater's parent company takes too big a cut." Reynolds' voice dropped. "We need to expand operations, but they control the purse strings, and you need funding for your campaign." Reynolds studied him blearily. "You move fast, Hammond. Time is money." Ryan smiled. "Tell me about your arrangement with Blackwater. How does it work exactly?" The DA glanced around the empty room, then leaned closer. "Bed quotas? The contract guarantees 90% occupancy. If we don't deliver enough bodies, the county pays penalties, and Judge Holloway helps meet those quotas." Reynolds nodded. "Maximum sentences, denied appeals. The right defendants, of course. The right defendants, low risk, non-violent. No one the public cares about." Reynolds laughed darkly. "Poor kids with public defenders who can't put up a fight. Like Marcus Jenkins." Ryan kept his voice casual. Reynolds froze momentarily. "What do you know about Jenkins?" "I make it my business to understand local cases before investing. Basketball player, first offense, 15 years. Seems noteworthy." That was just business. Reynolds drained his glass. Kid had no priors, no connections. Perfect candidate. And the evidence. "What evidence?" Reynolds laughed, then caught himself. "I mean, solid case. My brother's a good cop." Ryan nodded, sympathetically. "Family working together, admirable. Keeps it clean." Reynolds glanced at his watch and stood unsteadily. "I should go. Early court tomorrow, of course." Ryan helped him into his coat. "I'll take care of your marker. Consider it a campaign contribution. Unofficial, of course." Reynolds attempted a wink. "Of course, we'll discuss the details at Holloway's dinner tomorrow." As Reynolds stumbled toward the door, Ryan stopped him. "One last question. Do you ever worry about appeals? Evidence being reviewed?" Reynolds smirked. "Evidence has a way of getting lost in the system, especially when the system works for you." After the DA departed, Ryan ordered coffee and reviewed the recording. Reynolds had practically confessed to tampering with evidence, selecting defendants to fill prison quotas, and taking kickbacks all in under 20 minutes. His phone buzzed with a text from Lisa. "Holloway just added the Blackwater CEO's wife to the dinner list. They're rolling out the red carpet for you." Ryan smiled grimly. The pieces were falling into place faster than he'd anticipated. Tomorrow night, he would be dining with the entire conspiracy: the judge, the prosecutor, and the prison executive, all eager to bring Richard Hammond into their corrupt enterprise, and all of them walking straight into his trap. The call came at 3:17 a.m. from a number Ryan didn't recognize. "Mr. Ward." The voice was hushed, urgent. Ryan was instantly alert. Only two people knew him as James Ward: Denise Jenkins and her son. "Who is this guard Miller, from Blackwater? You gave Marcus Jenkins your number?" Ryan sat up, adrenaline clearing the fog of sleep. "What happened?" "They worked him over bad. Infirmary now. Said to call you." "Why? What did he do?" "Nothing. That's the thing. Random cell inspection. 3 guards. Middle of the night. I heard them saying it was a message from above." Ryan's grip tightened on the phone. "How bad?" "Cracked ribs. Maybe worse. His knee." Miller's voice faltered. "Look, I shouldn't be calling, but that kid doesn't belong here. And what they did? I need to see him." "Not possible. He's on restricted access." "No visitors," Ryan thought quickly. "Get a message to him. Tell him to hang on. I'm accelerating the timetable." After hanging up, Ryan paced his hotel room, rage building like pressure in his chest. This was his fault. Someone had connected Marcus to his investigation, perhaps noticed his visit, tracked his false credentials. His phone buzzed with a text from Lisa. "Urgent. Security sweep at courthouse today. They're looking for surveillance devices and unauthorized access to Holloway's records. They were closing ranks, tightening security." Ryan had anticipated resistance, but not this quickly, not this violently. He made a decision. Reaching into his locked briefcase, he removed a burner phone and dialed Solomon. "It's accelerating," he said when the old man answered. "They hurt the kid bad." "They made you," Solomon replied, fully awake despite the hour. "You need to pull out." "No, I'm pushing forward. I need more equipment, and access to the Blackwater infirmary." Silence stretched between them. Then, "You can't break into a private prison, Ryan. Watch me. This isn't a game. These people beat a 17-year-old to send me a message." Ryan cut him off. I got the message. Now I'm sending one back. Another pause. There's a medical transport company that services Blackwater. Coastal Health Services. They might have access. Get me credentials today. 6 hours later, Ryan adjusted the paramedic uniform as he approached Blackwater's staff entrance. Solomon's forged ID badge identified him as Brian Cooper, Coastal Health Technician, Equipment Maintenance, he told the guard, gesturing to the medical bag containing diagnostic tools. Infirmary called about the cardiac monitor. The guard checked his clipboard. Don't see any service calls. Ryan looked annoyed. Again, third time this month they've failed to log it. Call the infirmary if you want, but Dr. Winters won't be happy about waiting another day for her equipment. The guard hesitated, then waved him through rather than risk irritating the medical staff. Solomon's intelligence on the prison personnel had been perfect as usual. The infirmary was a sterile space with 6 beds, only 2 occupied. Ryan spotted Marcus immediately, the teenager's face swollen, his leg elevated and wrapped. Ryan approached the nurse's station, cardiac monitor maintenance. He nodded toward Marcus. What's with the kid? The nurse barely glanced up. Training. Accident. Some accident. Yeah, well, some guys don't know when to keep their mouths shut. Ryan moved to Marcus's bedside, positioning himself to block the security camera's view. The boy's eyes were closed, his breathing shallow. Marcus, he said softly. The teenager's eyes fluttered open, recognition gradually focusing through the haze of pain medication. Mr. Ward, how bad? Marcus tried to shift position, wincing. 3 cracked ribs. Dislocated my knee again. Why? They found out I talked to you. His voice was barely audible. Said next time they'd make sure I never played ball again. Cold fury settled in Ryan's chest. Listen to me. I'm getting you out of here. Soon? How? Despair tinged the question. I'm close to breaking the case. I have recordings of the DA admitting they target kids like you to fill beds, that they plant evidence. Hope flickered briefly in Marcus's battered face, quickly replaced by fear. They'll kill me before they let me testify. They won't get the chance. Ryan squeezed his hand. I need you to do something. Tell everyone, the doctor, the nurses, the guards, that your knee is worse than they think, that you can barely move it. Confusion crossed Marcus's features. Why? Because I'm getting you transferred to the county hospital. Medical emergency. Only way to get you out of here safely. Understanding dawned. They'll never approve it. Leave that to me. Ryan glanced toward the nurse who was watching them with increasing suspicion. I have to go. But I promise you, this is almost over. As Ryan turned to leave, Marcus caught his sleeve. My mom, is she okay? She's strong, waiting for you. Tell her, ... Marcus swallowed hard. Tell her I'm sorry I messed everything up. Something cracked in Ryan's carefully maintained emotional armor. You didn't mess anything up. They did this to you, and they're going to pay for it. Outside Blackwater's gates, Ryan sat in his car, hands shaking with a rage he hadn't felt since he was a teenager. Unfiltered fury at a system designed to profit from destruction. His phone rang. Lisa, they know, she said without preamble. Security found where someone accessed Holloway's computer. They're sweeping everything. Are you compromised? Not yet, but they're pulling visitor logs. Checking everyone who's been in the building in the past month. Ryan considered the implications. The dinner at Holloway's it's still on. Yes. They don't know it's you they're looking for yet. Ryan made a decision. I need you to do something. Pull Marcus Jenkins' evidence file. The original, not the digital copy. Why? Because I think it contains proof the drugs were planted. Reynolds practically admitted it last night. If I take that file and they notice, make a perfect copy first, down to the folder creases, replace it with a copy. A pause. You're asking me to steal evidence. I'm asking you to preserve evidence before they destroy it. There's a difference. She exhaled slowly. I'll try. But Ryan, ... They're closing in. If you go to that dinner, I have to. It's the only way to get all of them in one place. On record, it's too dangerous. They hurt that kid to send you a message, and I'm about to send one back. Ryan's voice hardened. No one else gets hurt except the people who deserve it. After hanging up, Ryan drove to Solomon's warehouse, his mind racing through contingencies. The dinner was in 5 hours. He would be walking into the lion's den, surrounded by people who suspected someone was targeting them. Solomon looked up from his workbench as Ryan entered. You went to the prison. It wasn't a question. They nearly killed him. Solomon dislocated his knee again. Made sure he knew it was a message for me. The old man studied him. You're taking this personally. Damn right I am. That's not how I taught you. Emotion, clouds, judgment. Maybe my judgment needed clouding. Ryan paced the concrete floor. These people are destroying lives for profit. They're not just marks. Solomon set down his tools. What exactly are you planning? I'm going to record them discussing their entire operation. Get it all on tape. Then take it to the press and the FBI. And if they catch you, Ryan's jaw set. They won't. Solomon sighed, then opened a cabinet and removed a slim metal case. New equipment, undetectable to standard security sweeps. Camera in the tie pin, audio in the watch. Double redundant, in case one fails. Ryan examined the devices. Perfect, And this, Solomon handed him a flash drive. Financial records tracing the money from Blackwater to offshore accounts controlled by Holloway and Reynolds. Took me all day to compile. Ryan looked up, surprised. You've been investigating them too, for longer than you know. Solomon's eyes held an unfamiliar intensity. These people have been running this scheme in 3 states. Thousands of kids, like Marcus, locked up to fill quotas and line pockets. Understanding dawned. This isn't just about one case for you either. Solomon turned away. Let's just say you're not the only one with ghosts, kid. As Ryan prepared to leave, Solomon gripped his shoulder. If things go wrong tonight, if they make you ease the panic button, I'll have people ready. I work alone, Solomon. You know that. Not this time. The old man's voice was firm. This isn't a con anymore, Ryan. It's a war. And you just picked a fight with people who make problems disappear permanently. Ryan nodded, accepting the backup for what it was. Not just practical support, but evidence that he wasn't the only one who had found something worth fighting for beyond the next score. As he drove toward Judge Holloway's mansion, Ryan thought of Marcus in the prison infirmary, of Denise Jenkins working night shifts to pay for appeals, of Lisa risking her job to expose corruption. For the first time in his career, the con wasn't about money or the thrill of deception, was about justice. And Ryan Blake was surprised to discover how much that mattered to him. The realization should have disturbed a man who had spent his life avoiding attachments. Instead, it felt like finding solid ground after years of drifting. Judge Holloway's Tudor-style mansion sat on 3 manicured acres in the city's most exclusive neighborhood. As Ryan handed his keys to the valet, he mentally reviewed Richard Hammond's biography one final time. Tonight, everything had to be flawless. He activated the recording devices, Solomon's latest technology, designed to bypass standard security sweeps. The tie-pin camera and watch microphone were virtually undetectable, recording to a secure drive disguised as a money clip. Mr. Hammond, welcome. Holloway greeted him at the door, resplendent in a smoking jacket that tried too hard to suggest old money. So pleased you could join us. The pleasure is mine, Judge. Ryan shook his hand, noting the security personnel positioned discreetly throughout the home, more than he'd expected for a dinner party. Holloway led him into an opulent living room, where 6 people clustered in conversation. Ryan recognized District Attorney Reynolds, looking slightly hungover but professional. Beside him stood a trim silver-haired man, Ryan identified as Robert Harris, CEO of Blackwater Correctional. Everyone, this is Richard Hammond, the investor I mentioned. Holloway made introductions around the circle. Harris and his wife Reynolds, a state senator, and his wife. Richard is exploring opportunities in our municipal infrastructure, Holloway explained. The euphemism understood by all. Harris stepped forward, hand extended. Lawrence speaks highly of your interest in public-private partnerships. I believe in efficiency, Ryan replied smoothly. Government often lacks the agility to provide certain services cost-effectively. Precisely our philosophy at Blackwater. Harris smiled, his eyes evaluating. Though these days we prefer Princeton Strategic Partners, our parent company, sounds less penal. Dinner was served in a formal dining room beneath a crystal chandelier. Ryan maintained Richard Hammond's sophisticated persona, discussing investment strategies and dropping references to past projects solved meticulously fabricated. Richard recently completed a similar project in Arizona, Holloway told Harris. A detention facility, wasn't it? Processing Center for Immigration Services, Ryan corrected smoothly. Though the security requirements were comparable, Harris nodded approvingly. We've expanded into that market as well. Lucrative government contracts. Throughout the meal, Ryan noted the careful dance around explicit corruption. They discussed occupancy requirements, guaranteed minimums, and legislative assurances, all code for filling prisons at taxpayer expense. As dessert was served, Holloway directed the conversation toward business. Richard, perhaps you'd join us in the study. I believe we have mutual interests to discuss. The women remained behind as Holloway led Ryan, Reynolds, Harris, and the senator to a wood-paneled room lined with leather-bound books. A guard positioned himself outside the closed door. Holloway poured brandy for each man. Now that we're among friends, I believe we can speak more directly. Ryan accepted the crystal snifter. I appreciate directness in business matters. Then let me be direct. Holloway settled into a leather chair. Princeton Strategic Partners is exploring an expansion in this region. 3 new facilities over 5 years. Significant investment, Ryan noted. Nearly $300 million, Harris confirmed. But we face regulatory hurdles. The senator cleared his throat. My committee oversees the state corrections budget. There's increasing public scrutiny of private prison contracts, particularly the occupancy guarantees, Reynolds added. 90% minimum becomes difficult to maintain without creativity. Ryan nodded thoughtfully. And this is where new investment becomes valuable. Precisely. Holloway leaned forward. We need capital partners who understand the ecosystem. The relationship between judicial efficiency, legislative oversight, and facility management. You need someone who won't ask inconvenient questions, Ryan translated. Harris smiled thinly. Someone who recognizes mutual benefit. And the benefit structure? Ryan asked, deliberately blunt. The men exchanged glances before Holloway responded. Princeton Strategic Partners pays a management consulting fee to several entities that provide services ensuring optimal facility utilization. These entities being Camden Holdings, primarily Holloway swirled his brandy, which retains advisors with expertise in judicial, prosecutorial, and legislative matters. Ryan nodded, understanding the layered shell companies hiding the kickbacks. And my role would be capital partner in the expansion, 20% equity position, with corresponding advisory fees. Harris named a figure that would double the investment within 3 years. Impressive returns, Ryan acknowledged, though I assume they depend on maintaining high occupancy rates. Not a concern. Reynolds smiled coldly. Our conviction rates lead the state, due to judicial efficiency, Holloway added, and selective prosecution, the senator murmured. Ryan activated the second recording device with a subtle adjustment of his watch. I'd be interested in seeing the actual mechanisms. How cases are identified and processed. Holloway hesitated. That's rather operational. I never invest without understanding the full process. Ryan's tone was firm, particularly when profitability depends on human inventory management. The euphemism drew appreciative chuckles from the men. Fair enough. Harris set down his glass. We maintain a demographic profile of ideal candidates for expedited processing. Young adults, primarily from lower socioeconomic backgrounds, first-time, nonviolent offenders. Why that profile? Ryan asked, though he already knew. Minimal public sympathy, Reynolds explained. No criminal history to complicate prosecution. Long sentencing potential, and they're generally healthy enough for the work programs. Manufacturing contracts being another revenue stream, Harris added. In the selection process, Ryan pressed Holloway, and Reynolds exchanged glances before the judge responded. The district attorney's office maintains surveillance on potential candidates. When appropriate cases present themselves, they're fast-tracked. With judicial cooperation for sentencing, Ryan concluded. Exactly. Holloway smiled. The system works remarkably well when all components align properly. Which brings us to an operational concern, Harris said, his tone shifting. We've had some irregularities recently, unauthorized inquiries into our processes. Ryan maintained his composed expression. Security issues? Potentially. Harris studied him carefully. Someone has been accessing court records, investigating specific cases, like the Jenkins boy. Ryan felt a cold prickle along his spine but kept his voice casual. Jenkins, a basketball player sentenced recently. Reynolds supplied 15 years for distribution, one of our ... expedited cases. Any idea who's investigating? Ryan asked. Not yet. Holloway's smile didn't reach his eyes. But we have resources dedicated to the problem. Ryan nodded thoughtfully, as if considering a routine business challenge rather than a direct threat. Security is always paramount in these arrangements. I assume problematic inquiries are handled ... decisively. Very, Harris confirmed. Our partnership with law enforcement ensures problems rarely persist. The implied violence hung in the air like cigar smoke. Ryan thought of Marcus in the infirmary, his knee deliberately damaged by men following orders from someone in this room. Well, Ryan said, raising his glass, I appreciate your candor. I believe we have the foundation for a mutually beneficial relationship. The men clinked glasses, sealing a corrupt bargain none of them expected Ryan to honor. We'll have the paperwork drawn up, Holloway said. Though we'll need to complete our standard due diligence, of course. Ryan smiled confidently. My credentials are in perfect order. As the evening concluded and Ryan prepared to leave, Harris drew him aside. One final question, Mr. Hammond. What drew your interest to our specific operation? There are similar opportunities in many jurisdictions. Ryan met his gaze steadily. I appreciate efficiency, Mr. Harris. And from what I've seen, your operation runs like clockwork. He glanced toward Holloway and Reynolds. When everyone knows their role, Harris studied him a moment longer, then nodded. Indeed, we'll be in touch soon. As Ryan drove away from the mansion, he reviewed the evening's achievements. He had explicit recorded confessions from everyone involved, the judge, the prosecutor, the prison executive, even the senator. They had outlined their entire criminal enterprise, confident in Richard Hammond's complicity. But something troubled him. Their mention of the investigation of Marcus specifically suggested they were closer to identifying him than he'd realized. His window was narrowing. He dialed Solomon's secure line. I got it all. Explicit confessions from everyone. Good. Solomon's voice was tense. Because they've been running checks on Hammond all night. My source says they're finding inconsistencies. Ryan's grip tightened on the steering wheel. How long do I have? 24 hours. Maybe less. Time to accelerate. Then, Ryan Solomon hesitated. They won't just come after you. They'll try to eliminate everyone involved. The clerk, the Jenkins family, anyone who could corroborate. Ryan thought of Denise Jenkins, of Marcus in his hospital bed, of Lisa risking her career. Then we'll have to strike first, he said quietly, as he ended the call. Ryan noticed headlights behind him, a black SUV, maintaining a consistent distance. He was being followed. The game had entered its most dangerous phase. Ryan lost the tail with practiced efficiency, using a series of calculated turns through a shopping complex and a quick car switch in a hotel. Parking garage, another contingency Solomon had prepared. By midnight, he was in a different hotel, under a new identity, reviewing the recordings. From Holloway's study, the evidence was damning. They had openly discussed selecting teenagers for prosecution based on demographics, fabricating evidence, and profiting from the resulting prison sentences. The entire conspiracy was documented. In their own words, but Ryan knew recordings alone weren't enough. He needed someone who could amplify the evidence, someone with credibility. Beyond a con man with a hidden agenda, he needed the press. His research had identified one promising candidate, Zoe Chen, A.N., investigative reporter for the Regional Tribune, who had published several critical pieces on privatized corrections. Her most recent article had questioned the surge in juvenile sentencing in the county, coming dangerously close to uncovering the conspiracy without quite connecting the dots. 9 a.m. Ryan called her desk line from a burner phone. Chen speaking. I have information about Judge Holloway, Reynolds, and Blackwater Correctional. Ryan kept his voice low. Evidence of corruption involving prison sentencing quotas. A pause. Who is this? Someone with recordings of them discussing how they select teenagers for maximum sentences to fill prison beds for profit. Another pause, longer this time. I get calls like this weekly. Why should I believe you? Because I have audio of the district attorney explicitly stating they target kids like Marcus Jenkins for prosecution to fulfill contractual obligations with private prisons. Marcus Jenkins, ... Her voice sharpened. The basketball player, 15 years for drugs he never possessed. I can prove it. How do I know this isn't some kind of setup? Check court records for the past 2 years. Track Holloway's sentencing patterns against Blackwater's contract requirements. You'll see the correlation. Ryan could hear her typing. I've been investigating this for months. Why come to me now? Because they know someone's onto them. They're destroying evidence and silencing witnesses, including Jenkins. They beat him badly 2 days ago. Jesus. More typing. How do you know all this? I can explain in person, alone. Silence stretched between them. Finally, there's a coffee shop on Westlake Avenue, backroom study area. 1 hour. Zoe Chen was younger than Ryan had expected, early 30s, with intelligent eyes and a wary expression. She sat in the back corner of the empty study room, a laptop open before her. You're late, she said as Ryan entered. Security, precaution. He glanced around the room, checking for surveillance cameras or listening devices. Were you followed? I know how to avoid tails. Occupational hazard. She studied him. You don't look like a whistleblower. What does a whistleblower look like? Usually scared, often desperate. Her eyes narrowed. You look ... calculated. Ryan smiled faintly. Perceptive. Who are you really? Court employee, Blackwater staff. Neither. Ryan sat across from her. Let's just say I have a unique skill set that allowed me to infiltrate their operation. Law enforcement, hope tinged her voice. No, but I have evidence they'd kill to suppress. She leaned back, skepticism returning. Then show me. Ryan placed a flash drive on the table. Recordings from Holloway's study last night. Financial records, tracing kickbacks through shell companies. Evidence documentation on Marcus Jenkins, showing tampering. Her hand hovered over the drive. Why bring this to me instead of the FBI? Because I don't trust federal agencies to move quickly enough. These people have political connections. By the time an official investigation navigates bureaucracy, evidence will vanish and witnesses will be silenced. While a newspaper article would create immediate public pressure, she concluded. Exactly. She took the drive but didn't insert it. I'll need to verify everything independently, and I'll need to know your real identity before publishing. Evidence stands on its own. My identity is irrelevant. Not to my editor, not to our legal team. Her gaze was unflinching. I need to know who you are and how you obtained this evidence. Ryan considered his options. The conspiracy was unraveling, faster than anticipated. His carefully constructed identity wouldn't survive much longer. Perhaps limited transparency was the only path forward. My name is Ryan Blake. I'm not a whistleblower or an undercover agent. I'm a confidence man. To her credit, Zoe didn't flinch. A con artist? A very good one. Ryan met her gaze. I infiltrated Holloway's circle, posing as an investor interested in private prisons. Gained their trust, recorded their conversations. Why? What's your angle? Marcus Jenkins reminded me of someone. Ryan's voice softened. A kid with a basketball scholarship and a future that got destroyed by a rigged system? Understanding dawned in her expression. You, Ryan, didn't confirm or deny. Will you run the story? If the evidence checks out, she inserted the drive into her laptop, but understand something. If this is some kind of con or manipulation, I'll expose you as thoroughly as I expose them. Fair enough? For the next hour, they reviewed the evidence together. Ryan explained the conspiracy's structure, the financial connections, and the process by which teenagers were selected for prosecution. Zoe's professional skepticism gradually gave way to journalistic determination. This is bigger than I realized. It's systematic. It's a business model, Ryan corrected. One that's been operating for years, across multiple jurisdictions. She looked up from the financial records. There are similar patterns in 3 other counties. All with Blackwater facilities? Now you understand why traditional channels won't work. This isn't a few corrupt officials. It's an enterprise. When can I interview Marcus Jenkins? You can't. He's in the prison infirmary, under restricted access. That's why we need to move quickly, she typed rapidly. I'll need 24 hours to verify key elements independently. Then we can go to print. We don't have 24 hours. They're already destroying evidence. They know someone's investigating. I can't publish without verification. That's journalism. Ryan leaned forward. Then verify what you can today. We publish tomorrow. My editor won't. Your editor will when you show him the recording of a sitting judge, district attorney, and state senator discussing how they deliberately imprison teenagers for profit. Ryan's voice hardened. Every hour we delay puts more people at risk. Zoe studied him, then nodded slowly. I'll push for tomorrow's edition. Front page, digital edition first. Maximum visibility. As she packed up her laptop, she fixed him with a penetrating gaze. One last question: what happens to you when this breaks? Holloway and his friends will know exactly who betrayed them. I'll handle that. They'll come after you. I'm counting on it, Ryan said quietly. Outside the coffee shop, Ryan checked his surroundings carefully before walking to his car. His phone buzzed with a text from Lisa. They're pulling Hammond's background reports. Emergency meeting in House Chambers in 1 hour. Time was running out, but Ryan had one more card to play, one that would ensure the story couldn't be buried. Even if something happened to him, or Zoe Chen, he dialed Solomon. The journalist is on board. Story runs tomorrow. Not soon enough, Solomon replied. They've accelerated their timeline. Security sweep at the courthouse. Files being removed. My source says they've identified inconsistencies in Hammond's background. Then we need insurance. Ryan started his car. The kind that makes them hesitate before they start eliminating witnesses. What did you have in mind? A deadman switch. Something that releases everything to every news outlet and law enforcement agency if anything happens to me. Chen, or the Jenkins family. Solomon was silent for a moment. I can arrange it. But Ryan, maybe it's time for you to disappear. You've done enough. Ryan thought of Marcus in the infirmary, his athletic career possibly destroyed. Of Denise Jenkins working night shifts too. Pay for appeals. Not yet, he said. I need to see this through. As he ended the call, Ryan spotted a black SUV pulling into the coffee shop parking lot, the same vehicle that had followed him from Holloway's mansion. They had found him. The final confrontation was approaching faster than he'd anticipated. Ryan ditched his car 6 blocks from the coffee shop, weaving through service alleys and a department store before doubling back to the transit center. 30 minutes and 3 bus transfers later, he was confident he'd lost his pursuers. Solomon's warehouse was locked down, security protocols activated. Ryan entered through the hidden back entrance, using the biometric scanner disguised as an electrical box. You shouldn't have come here, Solomon said as Ryan entered. The old man was methodically destroying documents, feeding them into an industrial shredder. They could have followed you. I was careful. Ryan surveyed the warehouse. Equipment was being packed into crates, workstations dismantled. You're bugging out. It's protocol when an operation goes hot. Solomon didn't look up from his task. You should be doing the same. Not until Chen publishes the story. They made you, Ryan. Solomon finally turned to face him. Hammond's cover is blown. They're connecting dots back to your other identities. How do you know? Because I still have sources they don't know about. The old man's expression was grave. Holloway made calls to federal contacts at the Treasury Department. They're running your known aliases through financial intelligence databases. Ryan absorbed this. How much time do I have? Hours, not days. Solomon gestured to a laptop displaying surveillance camera feeds from around the warehouse. They're hunting you systemically, and they're not just looking to scare you off anymore. I anticipated this. Did you anticipate them targeting Denise Jenkins? Or that clerk who's been helping you? Because they're expanding their search radius. Ryan, anyone connected to the investigation is in danger. Cold dread settled in Ryan's stomach. Denise is at work. Hospital security. And Lisa Conroy. Last I heard, she was at the courthouse. Ryan checked his phone. No messages. She was supposed to update me after Holloway's emergency meeting. Solomon nodded toward a secure terminal. Use the encrypted line. Check on her. Ryan dialed Lisa's burner phone. No answer. He tried again. With the same result. This isn't right, he muttered. She always answers. When did you last hear from her? 2 hours ago. Text about Hammond's background check. Solomon's expression darkened. They might have identified her as your source. Ryan paced the concrete. Flora possibilities racing through his mind. We need to warn her. And secure Denise Jenkins. Already in progress. Solomon tapped his keyboard, bringing up a new screen. I have someone at the hospital keeping eyes on Denise, and I've sent someone to Lisa's apartment. Ryan stared at his mentor. You've been running a parallel operation. Insurance. Solomon met his gaze. You're not the only one with reasons to bring down Princeton's strategic partners. What aren't you telling me? Solomon sighed heavily, then moved to a locked cabinet. He returned with a worn file folder and handed it to Ryan. Inside was a newspaper clipping from 15 years earlier. The headline read, Teen Suicide at Woodland Academy, under investigation. Below was a photo of a young black man in a graduation cap. My son Marcus. Solomon's voice was steady but tight. He wasn't a criminal, he was depressed. We sent him to Woodland for treatment. Ryan looked up sharply. Woodland, that's a behavioral health facility for troubled teens. Owned by Princeton Strategic's predecessor company. Solomon's eyes held years of contained grief. They put him in isolation for noncompliance. 30 days. No contact with family. Ryan scanned the article. The official ruling was suicide. He had ligature marks on his wrists. Bruising consistent with restraints. Solomon's voice hardened. There was no investigation. The medical examiner was on their payroll. Understanding dawned. That's why you retired from active cons. You've been building a case against them. For 15 years. Solomon's gaze was unflinching. I've documented every death in their facilities. Every kickback scheme. Every corrupt judge and prosecutor they've bought. Why didn't you tell me? Because you needed to find your own reasons, Ryan, not adopt mine. Solomon rested a hand on his shoulder. When you came to me about Marcus Jenkins, I knew you'd finally found something worth fighting for beyond the next score. Ryan absorbed this revelation, pieces falling into place. Solomon's extensive knowledge of Princeton Strategic, his ready assistance with surveillance equipment, his network of informants within the system. So all those retirement projects you've been working on, Justice. In my own way. Solomon managed a grim smile. I've helped dozens of families get their children out of these institutions, gathered evidence for class action lawsuits, supported journalists investigating the industry. Ryan felt a new respect for his mentor. While he'd been running cons for profit, Solomon had been fighting a shadow war against a corrupt system. This changes things, Ryan said quietly. It changes nothing. Solomon's voice was firm. The plan remains. Chen publishes tomorrow. Evidence goes to the FBI. Deadman's switch ensures no one can bury it. But now we have to protect Lisa and Denise. Already. Working on it. Solomon checked his phone. My people report Denise is safe at work. But Lisa, he frowned. No sign of her at her apartment. Neighbors say they heard a disturbance 2 hours ago. Ryan's stomach tightened. They have her, most likely, which means they're squeezing her for information about you. I have to find her. That's exactly what they want. Solomon gripped his arm. They're using her as bait. Ryan, I can't leave her to them. You go charging in. You'll both end up dead. Solomon's voice softened. This isn't a con anymore. These people have resources we can't match head-on. Ryan pulled away, retrieving his jacket. I'm not abandoning her. Damn it, Ryan. This is bigger than one person. Solomon rarely raised his voice. If you get yourself killed, who finishes this? Who makes sure Marcus Jenkins gets justice? Or my son? Or the thousands of others? The question hung in the air between them. We need to be smart. Solomon continued more calmly. Strategic. If they have Lisa, they took her somewhere to question her. Not the courthouse, not their homes. Ryan considered this. Blackwater would be too obvious. They have other properties. Shell companies own real estate throughout the county. Solomon returned to his computer. Princeton Strategic subsidiaries own these locations. Ryan studied the list. The warehouse on River Road. It's isolated. Private? Possible. Solomon expanded the property details. Owned by Camden Holdings. Shell company. That's where they'd take her. Ryan checked his watch. If Chen publishes tomorrow morning, we only need to keep everyone alive until then. You're not going alone. Solomon opened another cabinet, revealing an array of weapons. I'm coming. With you, no. Ryan's voice was firm. You're the insurance-ist. If something happens to me, you make sure the evidence gets out. You make sure Denise and Marcus are protected. Solomon studied him for a long moment, then nodded reluctantly. At least take this. He handed Ryan a small device. Tracker, so I know where you are. And this? Ryan nodded toward the guns. Solomon hesitated, then selected a 9mm pistol. You know how to use it? You taught me, remember? Ryan checked the weapon with practiced movements. Though you also taught me never to rely on them. Sometimes principles yield to survival. Solomon handed him a spare magazine. Deadman's switch is active. If you don't check in every 4 hours, everything goes to every law enforcement agency and news outlet in the country. Ryan tucked the gun into his waistband. If I'm not back by morning, I know. Solomon's expression was solemn. Get Chun's story published. Protect the Jenkins family. As Ryan turned to leave, Solomon called after him. Ryan, you've spent your life becoming whoever you needed to be for the next con. His voice softened. Maybe it's time to figure out who you really are. Ryan paused at the door. Maybe that's what I'm doing. Outside? Darkness had fallen. Ryan moved through shadows toward the vehicle Solomon had prepared and traceable, equipped with everything he might need for what was coming. His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. A photo of Lisa, bound to a chair, blood trickling from her temple. Below it, a message: Hammond, or Blake, or whoever you are, warehouse on River Road, midnight. Come alone, or she dies. Ryan started the engine, cold determination replacing fear. He'd spent his life playing roles, becoming whoever the con required. Tonight would be his most important performance, the one that might cost him everything. But for the first time, he wasn't playing a character. He was finally becoming the person he was meant to be. The warehouse on River Road was dark, except for a single light above a side entrance. Ryan parked a quarter-mile away, approaching on foot through the surrounding industrial lots. Years of running cons had taught him to anticipate betrayal, never enter through the expected door, never appear when expected. He circled the building, noting 2 black SUVs parked behind the loading dock. Security cameras covered the main entrance, but the fire escape on the east side appeared unmonitored. 15 years of Solomon's training hadn't been wasted. As Ryan scaled the fire escape, his phone vibrated. Chen, editor approved. Story runs. At 6 a.m. digital edition, front page print, need final confirmation on quotes. He silenced the phone. 6 hours until everything broke open. 6 hours to keep Lisa alive and secure their evidence. The second-floor window yielded to his lockpicks. Ryan slipped inside, finding himself in a dusty office overlooking the main warehouse floor. Below, harsh fluorescent lights illuminated a grim tableau. Lisa sat bound to a chair in the center of the floor, her copper hair matted with blood at her temple. Around her stood 3 men: Judge Holloway, Da Reynolds, and a security operative. Ryan recognized from Holloway's home. No sign of Harris, the Blackwater CEO. Ryan activated the recording device in his watch. Whatever happened next would be documented. Told you everything I know, Lisa was saying, her voice strained but defiant. He called himself James Ward at the courthouse, Richard Hammond at the gala. I don't know his real name. Reynolds circled her chair. You accessed restricted case files, pulled evidence, all while feeding information to this con man. I was doing my job. Public records. The Jenkins evidence file is missing, Holloway said coldly. Did you give it to him? Lisa remained silent. The security operative stepped forward, raising his hand, but Holloway stopped him. That won't be necessary, Mr. Diaz. Our guest of honor should be arriving soon. Ryan checked his watch. 11:45. They expected him at midnight. Through the front door. He needed a distraction. Searching the office, he found an ancient fire alarm on the wall. Perfect. Below, Reynolds checked his phone impatiently. Are we sure he's coming? He could have gone to ground. He'll come, Holloway said confidently. Men like him have a weakness for playing hero. Lisa's voice was acid. As opposed to men like you, whose weakness is sending teenagers to prison for profit. Reynolds backhanded her across the face. You have no idea what you're involved in, girl. Ryan's hand tightened on the gun in his waistband. Not yet. He needed them separated. Call him again, Holloway instructed Diaz. Remind him what's at stake. As Diaz stepped away to make the call, Ryan prepared to move. The fire alarm would create confusion, giving him seconds to reach Lisa. Then a new voice echoed through the warehouse. There's no need to call. I'm already here. Ryan froze. It was a woman's voice, familiar, but impossible. Lisa looked up, shock spreading across her features. Rebecca. From the shadows stepped a slim woman in a tailored suit, the receptionist from the courthouse records room. Hello, Lisa. Her voice was different, now educated, precise. Without the bored drawl, Ryan remembered. I'm sorry it came to this. You're working with them, Lisa's voice cracked with betrayal. She's Princeton Strategic's regional security director, Holloway explained with smug satisfaction. Been monitoring our courthouse operations for years. Rebecca, if that was her name, approached Lisa with what appeared to be genuine regret. You should have stayed in your lane. Just done your job. Like you, Lisa spat. Helping them destroy lives its business, Lisa, nothing personal. Ryan's mind raced, recalculating. The receptionist who had barely glanced at his false credentials, who had directed him to Lisa, who had been present for every step of his investigation. He'd been played. Our friend should be arriving soon, Rebecca said, checking her watch. Diaz, take 2 men and secure the perimeter. I want him taken alive if possible. As Diaz and his men moved toward the exits, Ryan realized his planned distraction would now be insufficient. Too many variables had changed. He scanned the office for options and spotted a circuit breaker panel on the wall. Electrical systems, another of Solomon's teachings, when outgunned, changed the battlefield. Ryan moved silently to the panel and examined the switches. Each was labeled in faded marker. Main floor, loading dock, offices, emergency lights, perfect. Below. Reynolds was growing impatient. It's midnight. Where is he? Calculating his approach, Rebecca replied calmly. He's thorough. One of the best I've encountered. Actually, you sound almost admiring, Holloway observed. Professional respect. He created Richard Hammond from nothing. Flawless background, digital footprint, social proof. If I hadn't been watching for inconsistencies from the beginning, he might have succeeded. Ryan positioned himself by the breaker panel, gun ready. On the count of 3, he would plunge the warehouse into darkness, then make his move. 1. What happens when we have him? Lisa asked, fear finally breaking through her defiance. 2. That depends on how cooperative he is, Rebecca answered, though his odds aren't good. 3. Ryan flipped the breakers. The warehouse plunged into total darkness, followed by startled shouts and confusion. He moved quickly through the darkness, counting steps to the stairwell he'd memorized. 14 steps down, then 30 paces to Lisa's position. A flashlight beam cut through the darkness, scanning wildly. Ryan ducked behind a stack of pallets, then continued forward as the beam moved away. He reached Lisa's chair and touched her shoulder to signal his presence. She stiffened, then relaxed as he whispered, "It's me." Using his pocket knife, Ryan cut through the zip ties, binding her wrists. "Can you walk?" "Yes," she whispered. "Head for the east fire exit. I'll cover you." As Lisa slipped away into the darkness, Ryan moved in the opposite direction, creating noise to draw attention. "He's here," Diaz shouted. East side flashlight beams converged on Ryan's position. He ducked behind a forklift as gunfire erupted, bullets pinging off metal. "Hold your fire," Rebecca commanded. "We need him alive." Ryan used the distraction to move again, drawing their attention away from Lisa's escape route. He needed just a few more seconds. Impact exploded across his skull as something hard connected with the back of his head. Ryan stumbled, vision blurring, gun clattering to the floor. The emergency lights flickered on, bathing the warehouse in dim red illumination. Diaz stood over him, tactical baton in hand. "Got him," he announced, pressing a knee into Ryan's back. Footsteps approached. Holloway and Reynolds appeared, followed by Rebecca. "Search him," she instructed. Rough hands patted him down, removing his phone, watch, wallet, and the flash drive containing his evidence backups. "Where's the clerk?" Holloway demanded. Diaz glanced around. "She was just here. Find her." Reynolds snapped. "She can't have gone far." As Diaz and another guard moved to search the warehouse, Rebecca crouched beside Ryan. Impressive effort, but ultimately futile. Ryan tasted blood, his vision swimming from the blow to his head. "It's over, Rebecca. Evidence is already with the press. Publishes at 6 a.m. Zoe Chen." Rebecca nodded. "We're aware she's being dealt with as we speak." Cold dread spread through Ryan's chest. He'd underestimated them again. "Your reputation was well earned, Mr. Blake," Rebecca continued, "but you're not the first to target this operation. Just the most persistent." Ryan struggled to focus through the pain. Had Lisa escaped? Was Chen in danger? His deadman switch would activate if he didn't check in. But that was hours away. "Nothing to say," Holloway mocked, standing over him. No clever last words from the great conman. Ryan looked up at the corrupt judge, summoning his strength. "Just one question." "And what's that?" "How does it feel to know you've been conned?" As confusion crossed Holloway's face, a deafening alarm blared through the warehouse. Fire sprinklers activated, drenching everything in water. In the chaos, Ryan lunged upward, driving his shoulder into Rebecca's midsection. She tumbled backward. As he scrambled to his feet, disoriented but determined, "Stop him," Reynolds shouted, slipping on the wet concrete. Ryan ran blindly through the sprinkler rain, searching for an exit. His head throbbed, blood mixing with water as it streamed down his face. Gunshots echoed behind him. A bullet splintered a crate beside his head. Another tore through his jacket sleeve. He spotted an exit sign and staggered toward it, pushing through the door into the cool night air. Freedom lasted only seconds. As Ryan cleared the doorway, a crushing blow struck his ribs. He collapsed to his knees, looking up to see Diaz standing over him, rage contorting his features. "That's for making me chase you," Diaz growled, delivering another blow that sent darkness closing in from all sides. Ryan's last conscious thought was of Marcus Jenkins, wondering if he'd failed the young man, just as the system had failed them both. Consciousness returned in painful fragments. Ryan's head throbbed with each heartbeat, his ribs screaming in protest as he tried to move. He was in a chair, arms secured behind him, ankles bound to the legs. Through swollen eyelids, he made out the same warehouse, now illuminated by portable lights. "He's awake," someone announced. Footsteps approached. Rebecca appeared, her tailored suit now damp from the sprinklers, but her composure intact. "Welcome back, Mr. Blake." Ryan tested his restrained zip ties. "Professional grade, no give. Don't bother," Rebecca advised. "We're not amateurs." "Could have fooled me," Ryan mumbled through split lips. "Professional amateurs, maybe." A backhand across his face sent fresh pain lancing through his skull. "Enough," Rebecca ordered Diaz, who had delivered the blow. "We need him coherent." Judge Holloway stepped into view, his silver hair disheveled, his imperious manner undermined by fear. "Where are the recordings from my house? And the financial records?" Ryan managed a bloody smile. "Published by now, digital edition at 6. Remember?" "He's bluffing," Reynolds insisted, pacing nervously. "Chen's being held by our people. The stories contained, for now, Rebecca agreed. But his equipment was transmitting to an external server. We need to know where the data is being, but stored and who else has access. Ryan assessed his situation through the fog of pain. They had him, possibly had Chen. But Lisa had escaped small victory, and Solomon remained free with copies of everything. The silent treatment. Rebecca sighed. Disappointing. I thought we might handle this professionally. Professional. Ryan laughed, triggering a stab of pain in his ribs. You're professional kidnappers now. Professional torturers. That in the Princeton Strategic Employee Handbook, we're problem solvers, she corrected, and you've become quite the problem. Holloway leaned in, his expensive cologne now mixed with sweat. This can end two ways. Blake, you tell us everything where the evidence is stored, who has copies, all your contacts, and perhaps you walk away, or Diaz gets creative. Reynolds finished, nodding toward the security operative, who flexed his fingers meaningfully. Ryan had endured beatings before, but the look in Diaz's eyes promised something beyond ordinary violence. Still, every minute he stalled brought them closer to 6 a.m. if Chen was still free to publish. You know what I don't understand? Ryan directed his question to Rebecca, ignoring the others. Professional to professional. Why this operation? Why target kids like Marcus Jenkins? Rebecca studied him, then nodded slightly. Professional courtesy between adversaries? Efficiency? Young, healthy inmates generate maximum profit work programs, minimal healthcare costs, long sentences. It's just business. Destroying lives. For quarterly returns, Ryan's voice hardened. That's not business. That's evil. Spare us the moral outrage, Holloway snapped. You're a thief and a liar. You've built your life on deceit. True, Ryan acknowledged. But at least I only stole from people who could afford it. You steal futures from children. Diaz stepped forward, fist raised, but Rebecca stopped him again. Mr. Blake raises an interesting point about our business model, she said calmly. Perhaps he'd be more cooperative if he understood the full scope of our operation. She nodded to someone behind Ryan. A laptop was placed on a table in his line of sight, screen displaying a Princeton Strategic Partners presentation. We're not just a prison company, Rebecca explained, advancing through slides. Juvenile detention, behavioral health facilities, immigration detention, halfway house CISA, complete ecosystem for managing human capital. The clinical euphemism turned Ryan's stomach. Blackwater is just one node in a national network, she continued. Judge Holloway and Mr. Reynolds are local partners in a system that spans 23 states. Ryan understood her upon him the futility of resistance by demonstrating the corporation's reach, but she was also giving him valuable intelligence, perhaps unintentionally. And these partners? Ryan nodded toward Holloway and Reynolds. They're expendable, right? When things go wrong, Princeton Strategic distances itself. New judges, new prosecutors, same business model. Holloway's expression tightened. Reynolds glanced nervously at Rebecca. That's not, the judge began. Standard corporate practice, Rebecca interrupted smoothly. Though in this case, our partnerships have been remarkably stable. But Ryan had seen the flicker of doubt in Holloway's eyes, the fear in Reynolds. They weren't partners, they were assets. Disposable when convenient. Let me guess, Ryan continued, playing the angle. Harris, the Blackwater CEO, he's not here because he's already distancing himself. Princeton Strategic is preparing to disavow knowledge of any unauthorized actions by local officials. Rebecca's expression remained neutral, but Holloway turned to her sharply. Is that true? Is Robert cutting us loose? Of course not, she assured him. But her eyes remained on Ryan, evaluating. Mr. Blake is attempting to divide us. A common tactic. Am I wrong? Ryan pressed. Princeton Strategic has operated this same scheme in other jurisdictions. When exposure threatens, they sacrifice the local players and relocate the operation. Reynolds stepped closer to Rebecca. We had assurances, guarantees, which remain in place, she replied firmly. Now, perhaps, we could focus on the matter at hand. But Ryan had found his leverage. These weren't loyal soldiers in a cause. They were frightened men realizing they might be sacrificed to protect the corporation. They've already replaced you, he told Holloway, probably grooming another judge right now. Younger, less exposure. Enough. Diaz stepped forward and delivered a blow to Ryan's midsection that left him gasping for air. As Ryan struggled to breathe, the warehouse door opened. A guard entered, speaking urgently to Rebecca. Her composure slipped momentarily. When, she demanded, 20 minutes ago. They've lost her. Find her. Now. Rebecca turned to Holloway and Reynolds. It appears Miss Chen has eluded our people. Reynolds paled. The story is still contained. For now, Rebecca checked her watch. We have 3 hours until the digital edition. Plenty of time to locate her and prevent publication. But Ryan saw the calculation in her eyes. The operation was unraveling. Contingency plans were being formulated including, he suspected, how to eliminate liability in the form of a corrupt judge and district attorney. A new guard entered, whispering to Diaz, who immediately drew his weapon. Security perimeter breach, he announced. East side. How many? Rebecca demanded. Unclear. motion sensors triggered at multiple points. She made a swift decision, move him to the secondary location. I'll handle this. As Diaz cut the zip ties securing Ryan to the chair, only to immediately restrain his hands behind his back, Ryan saw his opportunity. They were rushing now, making mistakes. Diaz roughly pulled Ryan to his feet, sending pain shooting through his injured ribs. As they moved toward a side door, Ryan deliberately stumbled, colliding with the table holding the laptop. The computer crashed to the floor, screen shattering. Clumsy, Ryan muttered. Diaz shoved him forward, but Ryan had accomplished his goal. In the moment of collision, he'd palmed a jagged piece of plastic from the laptop's broken casing, a makeshift tool to work on his restraints. As they approached a loading dock where an SUV waited, Ryan heard a sound that froze everyone in there. Tracks police sirens, distant but approaching. That's not possible, Reynolds whispered. No one would respond to a call out here without approval from my office. Rebecca's phone buzzed. She checked it, her professional mask finally cracking. It's a raid. FBI, state police, county sheriff, all approaching from different directions. How Holloway demanded. Rebecca looked directly at Ryan, his deadman switch. Someone triggered it. Ryan smiled through bloodied lips. Solomon, he said softly, right on time. The warehouse erupted into panicked activity. Guards reported multiple approaching vehicles. Reynolds was frantically calling contacts. Holloway appeared, on the verge of collapse. We need to dispose of him, Diaz insisted, nodding toward Ryan. He can't be found here. Rebecca assessed the situation with cold efficiency. The SUV? Take him to the river facility. No witnesses. As Diaz dragged Ryan toward the vehicle, Rebecca turned to Holloway and Reynolds. Gentlemen, I suggest you come with me. Princeton Strategic Partners has contingencies for situations like this. But Ryan saw the truth in her eyes. Princeton Strategic was cutting its losses. The local partners had become liabilities. Diaz shoved Ryan into the SUV's back seat, climbing in beside him with a gun pressed to his ribs. One sound and I finish this now. As the vehicle pulled away from the warehouse, Ryan worked the plastic, shard against his restraints, feeling the zip tie begin to fray. Behind them, red and blue lights illuminated the night as law enforcement converged on the warehouse. Brian had lost this round, but the game wasn't over. Solomon had triggered the deadman switch, which meant everything, all the evidence, all the recordings, all the financial records was now in the hands of law enforcement and media nationwide. The story would break with or without Zoe Chen. With or without Ryan Blake. Zoe Chen paced her apartment, phone pressed to her ear. Yes, editor. Harrison, I understand the legal implications. She glanced at her laptop where the article sat ready for publication. Headline bold against the white screen. Corruption exposed. Judge D.A. profit from teen prison sentences. The source materials are unimpeachable, she insisted. Audio recordings, in their own voices, financial records verified by our forensic accountant, and I have Marcus Jenkins' original evidence file showing tampering. That file had arrived at her apartment an hour earlier, delivered by a courthouse clerk named Lisa Conroy. Bloodied, terrified, but determined. Ryan Blake sent me, she'd said. They have him now. As dawn approached, Zoe fought her final battle, her cautious editor to publish a story that would shatter the county's legal establishment. Yes, I've tried to reach Blake for final confirmation. She checked her watch. 5:15 a.m. But given the circumstances and the public interest, we need to run this now. Her doorbell rang. Through the peephole, she saw two men in suits, badges, visible FBI. Miss Chen. One called through the door. We need to speak with you immediately. Her heart raced. Were they here to stop the story or confirm it? Mr. Harrison, federal agents are at my door. I have to go. She ended the call and opened the door cautiously, chain still in place. Agents Murray and Teller, FBI, they displayed credentials. May we come in? It concerns Ryan Blake and Judge Lawrence Holloway. Zoe studied their badges carefully before removing the chain. How did you know to come here? A data dump hit our offices an hour ago, Agent Murray explained as they entered. Extensive evidence of judicial corruption, prison kickback schemes, and coerced testimony. Your name was flagged as a contact. Blake's deadman switch, she realized. You know about that? He mentioned contingencies. Zoe gestured to her laptop. I'm about to publish the story. Agent Teller nodded. That's partly why we're here. We're not asking you to withhold publication, but we need to coordinate timing with ongoing operations. What operations? We're executing search warrants at multiple locations. Judge Holloway's residence and offices, D.A. Reynolds' properties, Blackwater, Correctional, and a warehouse on River Road where we believe Blake is being held. Zoe's breath caught. Is he alive? Unknown at this time. Murray's expression softened slightly. Miss Chen, your story and our operation have the same goal, exposing this corruption, but lives are at stake, including Blake's. What are you asking? 1 hour delay on publication. Give our tactical teams time to secure the locations and subjects. Zoe hesitated, journalistic instinct warring with concern for Ryan's safety. I can give you 30 minutes. Then we publish, with or without confirmation of your raids. The agents exchanged glances, then nodded. Acceptable. As they departed, Zoe called her editor. Hold publication for 30 minutes. FBI confirmation, incoming. Across town, Solomon Beck monitored the operation from a panel van parked 3 blocks from the River Road warehouse. Surveillance feeds showed FBI teams assembling at the perimeter, but his own operative had reported Ryan being moved minutes before law enforcement arrived. Track the SUV, he instructed the young woman beside him, a former intelligence analyst who had joined his network years ago. Black Suburban, heading east from the warehouse. Traffic cameras have it on Riverside Drive, she replied, fingers flying across her keyboard. Continuing east toward the industrial park, Solomon's network had grown over 15 years. Former intelligence officers, private investigators, ethical hackers, all united by personal connections to Princeton Strategic's operations. Parents of children lost in their facilities, former employees who had witnessed abuses, lawyers who had fought their contractual strangleholds on county budgets. Alert the FBI field team, he directed. Hostage and transport, armed escort. His operative made the call, relaying coordinates to the FBI tactical commander. Solomon watched the surveillance feeds as 2 FBI vehicles broke from the warehouse perimeter, moving to intercept. Sir, his analyst said quietly, we have confirmation that all evidence packages were received and opened by the designated agencies. 23 field offices, 9 news organizations, 3 congressional committees. Solomon nodded grimly. And Denise Jenkins? Secure at our safe house. We extracted her from the hospital an hour ago. The son, Marcus, still at Blackwater. FBI team entering the facility now with emergency transfer orders for all inmates identified in our documentation. Solomon allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. 15 years of patient work, gathering evidence, building networks, waiting for the right moment. Ryan's involvement had been the catalyst, accelerating everything, and perhaps costing the young man his life. Sir, his analyst pointed to the monitor. The SUV, it's deviating from the expected route, turning north toward the river. Solomon felt a cold certainty settle in his chest. They're not taking him to a secondary location. They're eliminating the liability. He grabbed a tactical vest and weapon from a locker. Coordinate with FBI. Tell them to converge on the river access point off Industrial Parkway. And get our drone in the air. I want eyes on that vehicle now. Ryan worked methodically at his restraints as the SUV sped through deserted streets. The plastic shard had frayed the zip tie, but not enough to break free. Beside him, Diaz kept the gun pressed to his ribs, eyes constantly checking the mirrors. They'll hunt you too, Ryan said conversationally, despite his swollen lips and aching ribs. Princeton Strategic doesn't leave witnesses. Shut up, Rebecca's already erasing connections. By morning, there'll be no record you ever worked for them. I said shut up. Diaz jabbed the gun harder into Ryan's side. Just professional courtesy. One soon-to-be-dead man to another. Diaz's eyes flickered with uncertainty, the seed Ryan had been planting. We have protocols. Extraction teams. For executives. Sure, not for security contractors. Ryan glanced out the window, noting their direction. We're heading to the river. Odd route for an extraction, isn't it? Doubt crossed Diaz's features as the SUV turned onto a gravel access road leading toward the water. The driver and other security operative hadn't spoken since they left the warehouse. Hey, Diaz called to the driver. Where's the secondary location? The driver's eyes met his in the rearview mirror. Change of plans, direct disposal, authorized. Ryan felt Diaz tense beside him. Disposal. I wasn't briefed on that. New directive from Ms. Carson. The operation is compromised. No witnesses. Ryan caught Diaz's eye. Told you, no witnesses, includes you. The SUV slowed as it approached the riverbank. Ryan redoubled his efforts on the zip tie, feeling it weaken. Further, stop the car, Diaz ordered, raising his weapon toward the driver. Now the driver complied, putting the vehicle in park but leaving the engine running. Is there a problem? Direct disposal wasn't the order. We take him to the secondary location for questioning. Those orders are superseded. The driver turned, revealing a handgun of his own. Princeton Strategic is cutting all local connections. That includes security contractors. Understanding dawned in Diaz's eyes exactly what Ryan had predicted. He wasn't an asset. He was a liability. In the moment Diaz's attention shifted from Ryan to the driver, Ryan made his move. With a final desperate effort, he snapped the weakened zip tie and lunged toward Diaz. Grabbing for his gun, the vehicle erupted in chaos. Ryan and Diaz struggled for the weapon as the driver raised his own gun. A shot exploded in the confined space, shattering the rear window. Another bullet tore through the headrest inches from Ryan's face. Ryan managed to wrench Diaz's gun away, then kicked open the door and tumbled out onto the gravel, pain lancing through his injured ribs. He rolled beneath the vehicle as more shots rang out. Footsteps crunched on gravel as the driver circled the SUV. Ryan crawled toward the rear. Diaz's gun clutched in his bloodied hand. A beam of light swept under the vehicle, the driver using his phone as a flashlight to locate Ryan. As the beam approached, Ryan took aim and fired, striking the driver's ankle. The man collapsed with a scream, his gun clattering away. Ryan scrambled from beneath the SUV, keeping it between himself and the wounded driver. In the distance, he heard sirens approaching. Diaz emerged from the other side of the vehicle, blood streaming from a wound in his shoulder. Blake. Ryan raised his weapon. It's over, Diaz. Law enforcement is coming. Princeton Strategic sold you out, just like I said they would. They'll clean this up, Diaz insisted, but uncertainty tinged his voice. They always do. Not this time. Ryan gestured toward the city with his free hand. Right now, every news outlet and law enforcement agency in the country is receiving evidence of the entire operation. Financial records, recordings, witness statements. Princeton Strategic Partners is finished. Diaz's expression shifted from determination to calculation. I was just following orders. I can testify. Against Rebecca, against Holloway, and Reynolds. Against all of them. I know things operations in other states, other judges on the payroll. The sirens grew louder. Headlights appeared on the access road. Then drop your weapon, Ryan said, and start talking to the FBI. Diaz hesitated, then slowly placed his gun on the ground, raising his hands as FBI vehicles surrounded them. Agents pouring out with weapons drawn. Ryan dropped his own gun and sank to his knees, exhaustion and pain finally overwhelming him. As agents secured Diaz and the wounded driver, Ryan felt a hand on his shoulder. Mr. Blake, an FBI agent, crouched beside him. Agent Keller, FBI, you're safe now. Solomon Beck, Ryan managed through swollen lips. He has all the evidence. No. His information triggered this operation. As paramedics approached, Ryan's phone confiscated at the warehouse, but recovered by the FBI buzzed with an incoming call. The agent answered, then held it to Ryan's ear. Ryan, Zoe Chen's voice came through clearly. Are you alive? Barely, he croaked. The story? Publishing in 5 minutes, front page digital edition. FBI confirmed the raids. Ryan closed his eyes, relief washing over him. Marcus Jenkins. Being transferred to county hospital under federal protection, his mother too. Tell them, Ryan's voice faltered. Tell them it worked. The con worked. As paramedics loaded Ryan into an ambulance, dawn broke over the city. His last conscious thought before pain medication pulled him under was that for the first time in his life, Ryan Blake had pulled off a con that left him with nothing, no money, no new identity to slip into, no escape route, just the certainty that he'd finally done something that mattered. 3 weeks later, the county courthouse buzzed with unprecedented activity. News vans lined the street, reporters clustered on the steps, and a crowd of protesters held signs demanding justice for wrongfully imprisoned youth. Inside courtroom 3, Ryan sat in the back row, nearly unrecognizable. His hair was dyed brown, cut short on the sides. Glasses with clear lenses altered his facial structure. Makeup concealed the lingering bruises. He'd spent a career becoming other people. Today's disguise was just another performance. The headline of the folded newspaper beside him told the continuing story. Prison corruption scandal expands to 3 states. 24 officials indicted. In the 3 weeks since Chen's expos broke, the case had exploded nationally. Judge Holloway, Reynolds, and 3 other local officials had been arrested the same night as Ryan's rescue. Rebecca Carson, Princeton Strategic's security director, had vanished, though international alerts were active. Robert Harris, the Blackwater CEO, had turned state's evidence, revealing corruption networks across multiple jurisdictions. The courtroom doors opened. Denise Jenkins entered, head high, followed by a legal team from the Innocence Project. Ryan's chest tightened at the sight of Marcus shuffling behind them, still limping from his prison injuries, but standing straighter than Ryan had seen before. Hope had that effect. This emergency hearing, one of dozens happening across the country, would determine whether Marcus would be released pending a new trial or full dismissal of charges. Judge Catherine Torres, brought in from another district to handle the tainted cases, entered the courtroom. Please be seated. The proceedings moved swiftly. The Innocence Project attorney presented the evidence of corruption, tampering, and prosecutorial misconduct in Marcus's case. The interim district attorney, looking shell-shocked by his predecessor's crimes, offered minimal resistance. Your Honor, the Innocence Project lawyer concluded, given the overwhelming evidence of misconduct, we request immediate release of Marcus Jenkins, pending the state's decision whether to retry this case with what little legitimate evidence remains, which, in our assessment, is none. Judge Torres considered this, then addressed Marcus directly. Mr. Jenkins, please stand. Marcus rose slowly, his mother's hand squeezing his arm in support. Mr. Jenkins, the evidence presented today paints a disturbing picture of systemic corruption that appears to have directly impacted your case. The judge's voice was measured but carried unmistakable anger. This court is deeply troubled by what has transpired under the color of law in this jurisdiction. She shuffled papers before continuing. I am ordering your immediate release. All charges remain pending for 30 days, during which time the district attorney's office must determine whether sufficient untainted evidence exists to retry this case. Given what I've seen today, I would be surprised if such evidence exists. The judge's gaze swept the courtroom. Let me be clear, what happened in this courthouse was not justice. It was a criminal enterprise wearing judicial robes. This court intends to rectify that injustice for Mr. Jenkins and every other defendant affected by this corruption. She brought down her gavel. Mr. Jenkins is to be released immediately. Court is adjourned. The courtroom erupted in applause and tears. Denise Jenkins embraced her son, both of them sobbing openly. The Innocence Project lawyers exchanged triumphant handshakes. Ryan remained seated, watching from a distance. This moment wasn't for him. He was merely a catalyst for justice that was long overdue. As the courtroom began to empty, Lisa Conroy slipped into the seat beside him. Her court clerk position had been reinstated with commendations after her role in exposing the corruption became public. Nice disguise, she murmured. But I'd recognize those eyes anywhere. Ryan smiled slightly. Professional habit. The FBI is still looking for you. You know, witness protection, they claim. I protect myself better than they could. Lisa studied him. Why risk coming here? You could have watched it on the news. Ryan's gaze remained on Marcus and his mother, still embracing as reporters gathered around them. I needed to see it, to know it was real. 27 cases overturned so far, Lisa reported. Marcus is just the beginning. Ryan nodded, satisfaction, warming his chest despite the lingering pain in his ribs. Solomon, cooperating with federal authorities? Limited immunity deal? She lowered her voice. Though I suspect he's kept some insurance files to himself. Smart man. Blake. Lisa's voice softened. Ryan, you could come forward, you know. You'd be a hero in all this. Ryan finally turned to her, a sad smile touching his lips. I'm not a hero, Lisa. I'm a con man who stumbled into doing the right thing. You saved Marcus. You brought down an entire corrupt system. For selfish reasons initially. Ryan stood as Marcus and Denise prepared to leave the courtroom. I need to go. Lisa caught his arm. Will I see you again? Better if you don't. But he hesitated, then added, though I never was good at saying goodbye permanently. Near the courtroom doors, Marcus looked up, his gaze sweeping across the remaining spectators. For a moment, his eyes met Ryan's. Despite the disguise, something flickered in the teenager's expression. Recognition, perhaps, or just intuition. Marcus gave the slightest nod, almost imperceptible. Ryan returned it, then slipped out a side door as reporters swarmed forward. Outside, Ryan circled the building, keeping 2 shadows and side streets to avoid the media frenzy at the main entrance. He paused at the corner, watching from a distance. As Marcus emerged into sunlight and freedom, cameras flashing around him, a reporter thrust a microphone toward the teenager. Marcus, how does it feel to be free? The young man considered the question, then spoke with surprising composure. I'm grateful for the truth finally coming out, but I'm thinking about all the others still inside who got caught in the same corrupt system. Do you know who exposed the corruption? The mysterious informant the FBI hasn't named. Marcus glanced around the crowd, his gaze briefly sweeping past Ryan's position. Someone who recognized injustice and decided to fight it, I guess. Someone who knew the system was rigged and found a way to unrig it. What will you do now? Another reporter called Hill. Marcus said simply, then get back on the court. My scholarship is still waiting for me. As cameras continued to flash, Denise spotted Ryan at the edge of the crowd. Her eyes widened slightly in recognition. Ryan placed a finger to his lips, then nodded respectfully to her before turning away. He had witnessed what he came to see: justice delivered, a future restored. Now it was time to disappear again. But for the first time in his life, Ryan Blake wasn't running toward another con. He was walking away from his greatest one. Ryan stood at the window of his hotel room, watching rain streak down the glass as evening fell. CNN played silently on the television, the headline crawler announcing new developments in what the media had dubbed the prison pipeline scandal. Princeton's strategic partners' stock had collapsed. 6 judges across 3 states had been indicted. A congressional hearing was scheduled. His burner phone buzzed with a text from Solomon. FBI closing in. Time to implement exit strategy. Ryan had planned for this moment. New identity documents waited in a locker at the train station. Offshore accounts contained enough money to disappear comfortably. A private charter could have him in Belize by morning. Standard operating procedure after a vanish before consequences arrived. A knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. Ryan checked the peephole, surprised to find Zoe Chen standing in the hallway, rain dampening her jacket. He hesitated, then opened the door. How did you find me? I'm an investigative journalist, she replied simply, stepping inside. And you're predictable? 3rd-tier hotel, paid in cash, room with multiple exit routes. Ryan closed the door, scanning her for recording devices or surveillance. The FBI send you. I'm not wearing a wire. She shed her wet jacket. And no, they didn't send me, though they'd love to know where you are. Why are you here then? Zoe produced a folder from her messenger bag. Your story. I'm writing it. The full account of how Ryan Blake brought down a corrupt prison system. Not interested. Ryan turned away. Your choice, she acknowledged, but people should know what really happened. How one person stood against institutional corruption and one Ryan laughed bitterly. Is that what you think happened? I stumbled into this, Zoe. I was looking for a way to scam a corrupt judge, not start a crusade. Intentions matter less than actions. She opened the folder, revealing printouts of Ryan's various identities over the years. Ryan Blake, James Ward, Richard Hammond, dozens more. 15 years of high-end confidence schemes targeting the wealthy and corrupt. Ryan stiffened. You've been investigating me? Thoroughly. She met his gaze, including your juvenile record, the mysteriously unsealed file that cost you a basketball scholarship to Michigan State. Ryan's carefully maintained composure cracked slightly. That's ancient history. Is it? Or is it the reason you risked everything for Marcus Jenkins? She set down more documents, your foster care records. 7 homes in 6 years after your mother abandoned you. Arrested at 16 for theft, records supposedly sealed, then magically unsealed when colleges came calling with scholarships. What's your point? Ryan's voice had hardened. My point is that you could have walked away at any time. You didn't. She closed the folder. You put yourself in the path of dangerous people to save a kid you didn't know, because you saw yourself in him. Ryan turned back to the window, uncomfortable with her analysis. What do you want from me, Zoe? The FBI has offered you witness protection. Solomon told me. Solomon talks too much. He cares about you. She stepped closer. The prosecutors are offering immunity for your testimony against Princeton Strategics executives. You could help bring down the entire operation, not just the local players. Ryan's phone buzzed again. Another text from Solomon. FBI triangulating your location. 30 minutes max. Zoe noticed his expression. They're close, aren't they? Ryan nodded slightly. My exit window is closing. Then make a different choice. Her voice softened. Stop running. And do what? Testify. Spend years looking over my shoulder for Princeton strategic assassins. Trade one prison for another in witness protection. Make your past mean something. Zoe held his gaze. The story doesn't end with Marcus Jenkins. Thousands of kids are still locked up in these facilities. Your testimony could free them. Ryan paced the small room, conflicting instincts warring within him. 15 years of self-preservation versus this new, uncomfortable pull toward responsibility. I'm not a hero, Zoe. I'm a criminal. You're both, she countered. Like Solomon Beck. He told me about his son, about his 15-year crusade against Princeton's strategic. He's been fighting this fight alone for years, waiting for the right moment, the right leverage. And I was just convenient. You were necessary. She picked up the remote and turned up the television volume. A news anchor was interviewing Marcus Jenkins. I don't know who exposed the corruption, Marcus was saying, but whoever they are, they saved my life. They gave me back my future. Ryan watched a teenager on screen standing straighter now, the prison pallor already fading, speaking with the confidence of someone who had faced the worst and survived. There are others still inside, Marcus continued, kids who don't have anyone fighting for them. I hope whoever helped me is still fighting for them too. Zoe muted the television. Are you? Ryan turned away, moving to the desk where his exit documents waited. Passport, driver's license, credit cards, all under a new name. A life built on shifting sand, always ready to be abandoned. He thought of Solomon, who had channeled his grief into purpose. Of Marcus, using his freedom to advocate for others. Of Denise Jenkins, who had never stopped fighting for her son. His phone buzzed a third time. Solomon, FBI vehicles in position. Leave now. I can't testify, Ryan said finally. I've committed dozens of felonies. They'd lock me up and throw away the key, not with the deal they're offering. Zoe pulled out another document, an immunity agreement. Full cooperation, in exchange for immunity on all past financial crimes. Solomon negotiated it. Ryan took the paper, scanning its contents. This is legitimate, signed by the U.S. Attorney this morning. She checked her watch. The FBI will be here in minutes. You can walk out with me, voluntarily, and accept their protection, or you can run again. Through the window, Ryan spotted dark SUVs positioning at the hotel entrances. His escape routes were narrowing by the second. Why do you care what I choose? He asked Zoe. Because good stories need good endings. Her expression softened, and because I think Ryan Blake might be worth saving. Ryan stared at the immunity agreement, then at the false identity waiting on the desk. 2 paths, 2 futures, he thought. Of Marcus on the basketball court that might have been his own, of Solomon and his lost son. Of all the other teenagers still trapped in a system designed to profit from their imprisonment. If I do this, Ryan said slowly, I need guarantees, not just immunity. Protection for everyone involved. Lisa, Denise, Marcus, already in the agreement. Zoe pointed to a clause he'd missed. Solomon was very thorough. A pounding at the door startled them both. FBI, Ryan Blake, we have a warrant for your arrest. Zoe raised an eyebrow. Decision time. Ryan took a deep breath. 15 years of instinct screaming at him to run, to find the exit, to become someone else. But something stronger kept him rooted in place, something that felt uncomfortably like responsibility. Okay, he said finally. I'll testify. Zoe smiled, relief washing over her features. I'll tell them you're cooperating. As she moved to the door, Ryan gathered the false identity documents from the desk. His last escape route, surrendered voluntarily. When the FBI agents entered, weapons drawn, they found Ryan Blake sitting calmly in a chair, hands raised, immunity agreement on the table before him. Ryan Blake, the lead agent asked. "That's me," he replied, using his real name for what felt like the first time in years. "I believe we have some corrupt prison executives to discuss." 1 year later, Ryan stood at the back of a packed university gymnasium, watching as the home team ran drills before the season opener. His eyes tracked number 23 Marcus Jenkins, now a freshman point guard for State University, moving with the fluid grace of someone born to play basketball. The knee injury had healed. The psychological scars would take longer, but on the court, Marcus looked free, precisely where he was always meant to be. "He's good," Solomon remarked, appearing beside Ryan. "Scouts are already watching him, as they should be." Ryan smiled slightly. Professional courtesy between old friends, or did the FBI approve this meeting? "My handler thinks I'm at a doctor's appointment." Solomon shrugged. "Yours grocery shopping." Ryan nodded toward the exit. "Let's walk." Outside, autumn leaves skittered across the campus quad. Both men were thinner than a year ago, marked by the stress of federal protection and months of testimony. "Princeton Strategic's CEO was indicted this morning," Solomon said as they walked. "That makes 37 executives and officials facing charges." I saw Ryan had followed the case obsessively. "Rebecca Carson is still in the wind. Interpol has leads in Singapore. She won't run forever." Solomon studied his "The U.S. attorney says your testimony was instrumental in the RICO charges. Apparently, you make a compelling witness." Ryan grimaced. "I make a compelling defendant." "You mean, half the time I felt like I was the one on trial." Price of redemption. They walked in silence for a moment, two con men who had found purpose beyond the next score. "How's the halfway house?" Solomon asked finally. Ryan's immunity deal had included mandatory community service 2 years. Working with juvenile offenders transitioning back to society, challenging, rewarding. The kids see through bullshit instantly, so you have to be genuine. Novel experience for you. "Terrifying," Ryan admitted with a small smile. They paused by a campus coffee stand, ordering drinks before continuing their walk. "Have you spoken to him?" Solomon nodded back toward the gymnasium where Marcus practiced. "No, better that way." Ryan sipped his coffee. "He has his life back. Doesn't need complications from mine. His mother asks about you, Denise." "How do you know that?" Solomon shrugged. "We talk. Monthly support group for families affected by the scandal. She coordinates it now." Ryan shook his head in amazement. "From night shift nurse to community organizer, she's remarkable." "She says the same about you." Solomon's tone turned serious. "You should consider coming to a meeting. Many families want to thank you personally." "I didn't do it for thanks." "Why did you do it, then?" Solomon stopped walking, facing his former student directly. "After all this time, I still don't know your true motivation." Ryan considered the question at first. Professional offense. They were running a con bigger and more destructive than anything I'd ever pulled. And later, Ryan's gaze drifted back toward the gymnasium. "I saw myself in Marcus, the scholarship, the way out, the system rigged against him." He paused. "But eventually it became something else. Something I couldn't walk away from." "Purpose," Solomon supplied. "Maybe," Ryan resumed walking. "Whatever it was, I'm not sorry." Despite everything that followed. Everything that followed had indeed been challenging. Months in protective custody while testifying. The constant threat from Princeton Strategic's remaining operatives, the loss of his carefully constructed life as a con artist, yet somehow, it felt like a fair exchange. "How much longer in witness protection?" Solomon asked. 6 months, assuming the appeals process goes as expected. Ryan glanced at his mentor.
You.
"They've offered to relocate me permanently. New identity, new state. Will you take it?" Solomon looked toward the autumn sky. "My son is buried here. My work is here." He shook his head. "Some things you don't walk away from no matter the risk." Ryan understood. He'd learned that lesson the hard way. They circled back toward the gymnasium as practice ended. Players emerged in groups, laughing and talking, Marcus among them. He wore his team jacket proudly, backpack slung over one shoulder. Indistinguishable from any other college freshman, exactly as it should have been all along. From a distance, Ryan watched him. The teenager's gait still showed a slight hitch from his prison injury, but his smile was unburdened, his future reclaimed. "He testifies next month in the congressional hearing," Solomon said quietly, becoming quite the advocate for reform. "Good. The system needs voices like his." As Marcus crossed the quad with his teammates, he glanced in their direction. For a moment, Ryan thought he'd been recognized, but the young man's gaze moved on without pause. It was better this way. Marcus Jenkins had a future to build, untethered from the past. "We should go," Ryan said. "Our respective handlers will be getting nervous." "Always the careful exit strategy," Solomon remarked. "Some habits never change." As they prepared to part ways, Solomon placed a hand on Ryan's shoulder. "For what it's worth, I'm proud of you. Not many can remake themselves so completely." Ryan nodded, uncomfortable with the praise, but appreciating its sincerity. I learned from the best. No. Solomon's gaze was steady. You learned the techniques from me. The courage to use them for something beyond yourself, that was all you. They parted with a handshake that contained years of history and mutual respect. Solomon heading east toward his safe house. Ryan west toward his temporary apartment. Before leaving campus, Ryan paused at the university bookstore. On impulse, he purchased a State University basketball cap and a copy of the student newspaper. The front page featured an interview with the basketball team's promising new point guard. Jenkins leads state's title hopes. Read the headline. Ryan smiled, tucking the paper under his arm. His testimony in the congressional hearing was scheduled for the following month. Another opportunity to dismantle the system that had nearly destroyed Marcus and countless others. For now, though he had 6 juvenile offenders waiting for their weekly financial literacy class, young men and women trying to rebuild lives derailed by the same corrupt system, as he walked toward the bus stop, Ryan's phone buzzed with a text from his FBI handler. Meeting tomorrow moved to 10 a.m. Progress. Report required. He typed a quick acknowledgement, then slipped the phone back into his pocket. The life of Ryan Blake, former con artist, now federal witness and reluctant mentor, was not what he had ever imagined for himself. It was harder, more constrained, more honest, and somehow, despite everything, more fulfilling than the elaborate cons that had defined his previous existence. At the bus stop, Ryan glanced at the newspaper again. Marcus Jenkins smiled from the photo, basketball in hand. Future bright before him. One case had changed many lives, including his own. What price would Ryan pay to free an innocent boy when the entire system was rigged against them both? As it turned out, the price had been his old life, his freedom, his carefully constructed identity as a man who cared for nothing and no one. And somehow, it had been worth every cost. The con was over. The truth remained.